What is up, guys? Welcome to episode number 154 of Beef's Beef. Sorry, it's been a little bit. I've been trying to get some things together as far as finishing that interview with Marcus Maben, which we're going to get done here pretty soon, and lining up other stuff as well as the holidays. You know what I mean? So hopefully you guys enjoyed that part one of the episode with Marcus Maben, but I have another special one for you guys tonight. Sometimes I like to change it up, not do something about sports. Because I like to show you guys that I can interview more than just sports, and I know more than just sports. But I think you guys are going to enjoy this one anyway, especially a lot of my friends that probably don't necessarily usually listen because they don't really dig sports. But first off, I want to talk about my sponsors. It's been a couple of weeks, so I can't do an episode without pumping up my sponsors. First one, obviously, Crystal Lackey at Stockton Mortgage. Hit Crystal up for all your home loan, your mortgage needs, your refinancing needs. She's been posting so many great tidbits and pointers and everything to Facebook. Make sure you're checking those out. I've been sharing them. She's been sharing them. Her Facebook page has been sharing them. Make sure you get on there and hit her up either through there or over the phone at 502-615-0743. Again, it's Crystal Lackey at Stockton Mortgage, 502-615-0743. Stockton Mortgage is an equal housing lender, MLS number 8259. Crystal Lackey, MLS number 1735979. Sorry, it's been a couple weeks since I've done it. I know I messed it up there at first, but hey, you know what? That's what makes this podcast so good is because, I bring it to you exactly how it is. But my second sponsor, it's Dellium, pronounced Dellium, spelled Bdelliom. Always point at that shirt. I did great today. Nailed it. First try. Dellium is a men's and women's minimalistic brand that focuses on modern aesthetic and quality. Everything comes pre-shrunk, so you don't have to worry about throwing it in the dryer and it shrinking down and becoming, a tube top. You don't got to worry about that. You can find his men's line at Him's Gentleman Boutique. You can find him online at Dellium Clothing on Facebook and at Dellium Clothing on Instagram. Again, hit up my very good friend Isaiah at Dellium Clothing online at Facebook, or on Facebook at Dellium Clothing and at Dellium Clothing on Instagram. So today I'm bringing you guys, like I said, a different interview because it's not sports related, but it's something that I love. And he's a member of a band that I love. His name is Aaron Lunsford. He is an author. He puts out a food blog, and he's I don't know how to say it. I guess he's most notably known as being the drummer for the band As Cities Burn, which if you're friends with myself or at least two of my brothers, Ryan and Matt, you'll have heard us playing them at one point or at least speaking about them. Or you already know them, not from us. Either way, you're going to enjoy this interview with Aaron. I got a lot of great questions lined up for the interview, and I'm excited to hear what he has to say. I think you guys are going to enjoy what he has to say. So without further ado, Aaron Lunsford. All right, guys, I'm here with Aaron Lunsford. Thanks for joining me tonight, man.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
For sure. We linked up. I guess it was. We've talked a couple of times because you met my brother indirectly through different shows that you guys have put on, and
Yep.
I brought up you coming on the podcast, and you were like, "Yeah, man, I always love talking sports." So, we're going to talk some sports, talk about your band, and talk about the other stuff that you're into as well. But let's go ahead and hop into it. So you were born in the Atlanta area, correct?
Yep. I was born in Atlanta and then grew up in the Atlanta area till I was about 12.
And
So,
I know that one of the biggest things about you is that you're a huge Braves fans. Are you a fan of any other professional teams from the Atlanta area? Or
it's funny. We were just kind of we were a baseball family, and not that, my dad, played baseball growing up or whatever, but for whatever reason, we watched baseball every night. And that's just what we watched. We watched baseball, Braves baseball, and then my dad's from Carolina, in North Carolina, so we watched Tar Heels basketball. So those are really the only two sports teams I grew up watching. My dad likes football, and my dad just watches sports, all day, every day, NASCAR or whatever. I just like baseball. I enjoy watching other sports if I'm with friends or something, but I hardly ever turn on anything else. And I think it's because I mean, I watch baseball like every day, or I listen to baseball every day during the season. So I kind of go hardcore
Yeah.
for the season, and then that gets my fix in, and then during the off season, it's like I feel like I'm getting an off season from being a
That's
fan of something. So
that's so crazy to really think about because if you think of people that aren't really that into sports, most of the time baseball's at the very bottom of the list, and it's kind of
yeah,
it's so different to hear someone say baseball's at the top of the list.
yeah. Well, I mean, I played since I was 4 years old. Played in high school. Played American Legion. I think I probably would have been able to go play some college ball if I hadn't had decided to start messing around with music. Um, but I don't know. I can't explain it. I just fell in love with it when I went to my first Braves game when I was 6 weeks old in
Yeah.
1983. My parents, that's like probably the first thing I got to do out of the house as a baby, is they took me to a Braves game at Fulton County Stadium. So that has just been, I don't know. The only thing I've cared about my whole life is Braves baseball. So
So
uh,
what was it that stuck out about the Braves? Was it like, hey, I live in Atlanta, there's not really anything there's no choice, it's Atlanta or nobody, or was it just like they
it,
stuck out to you?
No, yeah, it was just ingrained in me. Like I said, first game when I was 6 weeks old. Grew up when you're a kid up till the age of 7 or 8, you can't really remember much.
Yeah.
But they weren't good in the 80s. But I guess what really solidified it and like made it a lifelong thing was when those teams in the 90s started
Yeah.
getting good. Because I was 8 years old, I guess, 8 years old when the 1991 team went to the World Series. And so I have vivid memories of them winning that pennant and all the drama around it. Like I remember watching it. I remember the players, like remember how I felt. And so I think getting to experience that at the right age as a kid is
Yeah.
what can really lock you in as a lifelong fan. And then it doesn't hurt that they were good. They won their division 14 years straight after that.
Yeah. So
So
who would you say, if you had to pinpoint one, who would you say is your favorite Braves player ever?
it's Chipper Jones for sure. And I mean, he came along, his rookie year was technically 1995. So he even came along a little bit into it. But he's the player that I can have the most memory of watching their entire career, right?
Yeah.
So in 95, I was 12 years old, 13, whatever it was. 12. And, he retired whenever I had my first child. So it was kind of crazy. I remember the first time my wife ever saw me cry, I was sitting there holding our baby, or maybe she was pregnant. I can't remember the timing. Regardless, and I was crying because Chipper Jones was retiring, and he's
I,
like, "Are you?"
I'm laughing because I understand. Like
Yeah,
I get that. Yeah.
we were just sitting watching one of his last games, and I was just like, and I was about to become a dad, and I was like, "Oh shit!"
It's all good. It's all good.
Uh, you know, told me not to curse.
Yeah.
I was like, "Man, I'm like grown up now. My childhood favorite player, who I care more about than anything, is done playing baseball. So now it's like all your favorite players are kids younger than you,
Yeah.
like not really, they're kids. Like
It's
Ronald
super
Acuna
weird.
Jr.,
Yeah.
he's like a kid to me, who
Yeah.
would be I might find annoying to hang out with because like you know dumb like 21-year-old kids. Chipper retiring and then having the baby like that same year, I was just like, this is messing with me
Yeah.
emotionally. And so I was crying. Cassie's like, are you crying about Chipper Jones? I was like, you don't understand, babe.
Yeah, I
This
mean,
means something.
it really is because I feel like more like even like I'm a few years younger than you, but I brought this up to somebody else, and really in all sports, it feels like, or just our generation felt a lot closer to athletes, and one person in particular, I feel like every person, despite who your favorite team was, everyone liked Ken Griffey Jr. And
Yeah.
I feel like that's kind of what's missing in today's game of baseball is there's not a Ken Griffey Jr. that kind of like doesn't matter what team you like, everybody likes him. No, there is no Ken Griffey Jr. And I think that hurts the game of baseball.
They have a real branding problem, and it's something that if you follow people on Twitter that are write about baseball and talk about baseball for a while now, that's like been a big conversation. Like, why is Major League Baseball so bad at branding their players and
Yeah.
making them national stars? Part of the reason is that baseball is a local regional game. Like, they play so many games. So people in Atlanta really, really care about Braves baseball. People in Cincinnati are fanatical about Reds baseball,
Yeah.
but nobody outside of Cincinnati cares about the Cincinnati Reds, really.
Yeah.
So Joey Votto is going to be a Hall of Famer. He's not that famous of a baseball player.
Yeah.
Most people probably don't know who he is and wouldn't recognize him if they saw him, walking down the street.
But see, I
Ken
feel like somebody
Griffey,
you just brought somebody up is Ronald Acuna. I feel like the game could get behind someone like Ronald Acuna and make him transcend every team because there's nothing
yeah,
about that kid that's not likable. He hits for
he could.
power, he hits for
Yeah.
average, and he can run. I mean, he literally does everything Ken Griffey Jr. did, and I feel like he could do that.
I think there's some hope with them. I think Acuna could be that. He could at least be there's a handful of stars that I think have that Griffey star type of power. Mookie Betts, I feel like is a guy they're trying to kind of figure out how to do that with. It's just hard. The hardest thing is it's weird because King Griffey Jr., when he was that guy, he was arguably the best player in the game.
True.
But the best player in the game, not arguably, unanimously, he is. Mike Trout is
Yeah.
not marketable at all, and he doesn't particularly care about being marketable.
Yeah.
And he will go down as maybe a top 5 ball player of all time. And people that follow sports don't really know who he is.
Yeah.
So it's really weird. But Griffey had video games and commercials and the shoes and all that stuff,
And the
and
backwards hat.
the
Everyone would have
backwards
had
hat.
backwards hat
Yeah.
because it was just so many things because of him.
Yeah, and I think he was kind of also catching that, like, Michael Jordan kind of set the stage for that, like, ultra superstar branded athlete thing, and Ken Griffey was like baseball's answer to that, and he kind of like not rode his coattails, but like there was a blueprint for that.
Yeah.
If the way I remember it, like, okay, Michael Jordan's doing this thing, Ken Griffey, he's figuring out how to do the same thing. But thinking back through the '90s, even as far as ball player goes, was there any other ball players that did that as well as Ken Griffey? And
No.
so he might have just been an anomaly, and maybe it might not be a baseball thing. Maybe it's not even,
True.
maybe it's not in the cards. So I don't know.
That's a very good point. So when did you, because you grew up talking about baseball and playing baseball, when did you kind of get into playing music, and who got you into playing music? Because you said your dad played baseball.
Yeah. We grew up, baseball is the thing we did, and then I got good at it, and so I kept doing it. Um, Music, I mean, we always had music around the house, but we weren't musicians. Like, nobody in my family is a musician. So I have an uncle who's a drummer, and he was a good drummer. Uh, did some stuff in Nashville for a little bit, church scene, that type of stuff. I just really, again, product of the '90s. In the early to mid '90s, radio, the songs that were on the radio, there's a lot of rock,
Yeah.
like really cool alternative rock. So obviously Nirvana, Weezer, Smashing Pumpkins, Oasis, stuff like that. I just kind of clicked with all that stuff, and got really into it. And then in 5th grade in Atlanta, my 5th grade teacher, Mr. Lamatina, he was a professional drummer, and ran the drum line at one of the local high schools. And he every year would do Friday afternoon lessons for like 50 kids. You sign up, you're like first come, first serve, beginning of the year, you sign up for these drum lessons. And so after school on Fridays, you'd stay for about hour and a half, and you'd just take drum lessons in a big class for free with 50 other 5th graders.
Wow.
And so I did that whole year. And then at the end of the summer, or at the end of the school year, he awarded, 2 scholarships for a free summer of drum lessons, at his house with, him and his sons ran like a drum lesson studio. And I won one of those. And so I just kind of latched on from there and just kept playing and got really into it. And parents were supportive, bought me drum sets, let me be loud in the house anytime I wanted. So
That's a big thing because most of the time you hear parents are like, "Yeah, I'll support them." Then once they get the drums, it's like,
I can't imagine. I mean, I think about it. I have 3 kids, and I love to just sit and, watch some TV or whatever. Uh, I don't know if I would be that cool to just let some kid jam to a, No Doubt Tragic Kingdom on, like, because I would just turn I had the boom box, stereo, and I just put the CD in or the tape and turn it all the way up so I could play along. I didn't have headphones or anything.
yeah.
That was how I would play along the music and learn it. So full blast boombox, 12-year-old playing drums over it. So not the greatest home life for
So when
them.
so when did you actually I want you to tell the story because you talked about them buying you a drum set. I listened to a podcast you were on with one of your buddies, and I want you to tell the story you told about the old drum set that you had that they actually sold and bought
Yeah.
you a brand new. I thought that was so funny.
My uncle had given us an old vintage drum set, silver sparkle, whatever, and it was just kind of, it needed some care, but it was just old. And the hardware was old, and it just wasn't really what I was looking for. And so for my birthday, when I was, I don't know, 13 or whatever, my parents got me a brand new drum set, a brand new CB drums, which is the ultimate beginner, like, cheapest set you can get. And they got rid of the other kit, the vintage kit that turned out to be like a Rogers vintage kit, which from like the 60s. Uh, just is one of the coolest drum kits you could possibly want to have. And now, being in my 30s, would kill to have that back. And
Yeah.
it's just really funny that they didn't know. Of course, I didn't know, but they were like, "Oh, we're gonna get this brand new drum kit, get rid of these stupid old, you know, God knows how much they're worth now."
See, that conversation though, it turned me on to something that I've never really thought about with drummers and how you all play because you said that with that drum set, you like maybe it just needed, like you said, care in certain spots, but you talked about turning certain drums certain ways and how you would play that. And I thought that was very interesting on how you said, you saw guys like Travis Barker and you tried to kind of emulate how he did it. And then you figured
Yeah,
out once you started really playing shows, it's like, I need to figure out how I feel comfortable doing it. And that's something I
yeah,
never really thought about.
yeah. Well, I think when you're doing anything, you're just kind of, when you're learning something, you're kind of copycatting, right?
Yeah.
And just trying to figure out. I mean, you could say that about the band early on. I mean, not even early on, even as far as our last record. You're always just kind of, you're imitating something you've heard or seen. And so when you're a kid trying to figure out how you should set up your drums, you're like, you look at the drummers that you like to listen to, you're like, okay, I'll try to set up like them.
Yeah.
And then eventually you figure out how goofy it is to just try to, like, set, Travis Barker. How could anybody set up like Travis Barker and expect the same results? I don't know. Like, he's one of the best drummers on earth. And
Yeah.
so you think, oh, I'm going to set up totally bizarre like him, but he has his own way, style, and, like, all that even depends on just, like, where you have your shoulders and where you keep your elbows. And the way he plays, he's like all up here, right? So he's super on top of everything. But I had a much more relaxed kind of position, so it wasn't really working for me.
It,
So
it, it also brought to my mind because you go to shows and me not being a musician, you're always like, why does it take so long to tear down and set up so much?
yeah,
I feel like the drums are probably the things that take the longest because of something like that. You would have to, okay, let's make sure this is in the right spot. Let's make sure that I feel comfortable doing this before you even start. Because you can't get in the middle of the show and be like, hey, let's stop the entire show and let me adjust my drum set.
yeah. Well, as you get better gear, you get cooler stuff on it. You have memory locks and stuff like that, so that you can know exactly where you like your hardware to be as far as height and stuff like that. And then you get a drum rug and tape it off so you know wherever, to put everything. And we've done a tour or two where I had a drum tech who would set my stuff up for me. And so that was, you know, a process, like making sure, you know, they have to understand, like, hey, you don't want to get up there to play and something's even a little bit off. It can really be frustrating.
Yeah.
Now, every time we load in or load out to a show, I'm like, why did I choose drums? Why, you know, I really wish somebody just told me, like, learn to sing, because you see the singer is just standing back by the merch table
Yeah.
talking with nothing to load out. You
That's
know,
true.
I mean, if they're cool, they help. But
Yeah. So
TJ was cool.
when did you know as a kid that, like, hey, you know, I'm pretty good at drumming? Was there like something that happened, or was like an aha, like, click moment? You're like, okay, I think I kind of like figured out the basics of this to get myself going to move forward in the future to get better.
I don't know. I don't know. I mean, getting that, you know, summer scholarship thing for lessons was some early validation where, you know, my teacher was like, "Hey, you're doing good. You should just, you know, keep going with this. I think you might enjoy it and get somewhere." And I did enjoy it. I liked playing. But as far as like, I think I finally felt like I was a pretty good drummer like 2 years ago.
That's insane to
So
think about. I mean,
yeah, about
with how long?
25 years in. Um, and even that, I was just like, okay, I'm good at what I do now. I'm pretty good at what I like to do and can contribute in my very specific, you know, musical ecosystem here. But I, I just liked playing music and being in a band. I think it wasn't for me. It's not so much like I have to play the drums. People get disappointed. I'm not really that passionate about drums.
Mhm.
I'm more passionate or care more about songwriting process and making sure, you know, recording and making sure everything sounds cool.
Yeah.
Um, as far as drum technicality or gear or anything like that, like, doesn't interest me that much.
Yeah.
So yeah,
I mean, that's interesting to hear. I mean, you said it made this not. It really, that's stuff that I like to hear, because it's like the fact that you would go into a band and continue on and play together for so long, and something that you may not necessarily love. I mean, you like it enough to keep doing it, but like, I mean, it's interesting, and I don't know. Like, I just, it's kind of cool to hear that you would play for so long and do that, and you didn't really necessarily love it.
yeah. I mean, it's fun. Like, it's fun to play a good show and feels good when you play good and all that sort of stuff. But um, definitely at some point, I mean, I don't know. I haven't played drums in a year, uh, over a year. I haven't even touched I touched a drum set last month or something like that, month and a half ago. When I went to help Emory. They did a live stream um, thing this week, and next week they have another show, and I went to help on the production of that. And Dave had his drums set up, and I sat down for a minute and jammed. So in the
Nice.
last year and a half, that's the one time 5 minutes that I've touched a drum set. So
So from Atlanta, you moved to Arkansas, correct?
yeah,
And one of the parts of that podcast you mentioned, the first, like, one of the first bands you were in was a ska band,
yeah,
and you didn't really speak on it that much because you were like, yeah, they're pretty much. I want to hear a story about this band. What was the name of the band?
we're called Arkansas.
Yeah, I thought that was. I thought the name first off was clever. How old were you when you were in this band?
14, 14-ish, 15-ish.
That's pretty clever of a name for,
Yeah,
14 and 15-year-old kids.
yeah, I was ninth grade whenever we started that. I don't think I came up with that, but uh, Arkansas, I think it's one of the best ska names ever.
I when you said it, I was legitimate. Like, I was working, and like, this is where I work at as well. And I had my computer that I'm looking at now sitting next to me, and I was listening to the podcast while I was on hold for a call. And you said that, and I literally laughed out loud when you said that.
Yeah,
I thought it was so funny and clever, and
it's
I was
pretty
like,
good.
that's pretty good. Um,
TJ from Ad Cities Burn, he has an idea for a ska band name called Sausage Biscuit.
I feel like that should maybe be like the next wave of thinking of the best ska band name.
It's about the name, you know.
Yeah.
The music doesn't matter. You gotta have a killer name.
So I guess as Cities Burn kind of came to about in about 2002. Is that correct?
Yep, their first show was 9/11/2002.
And
So
how long into the band was it that they brought you aboard?
yeah, less than a year. And so I met them May of 2003 through a mutual friend, and went down there. Their drummer, was wanting to stay in college or whatever, and they were all wanting to go on tour. So they're like, let's find a drummer who wants to go on tour. And I went down there and try it out. I guess we just got in a room and jammed and played through some songs and hung out for a weekend, and talked about what we all wanted to do and what our commitment level was. And at that time, I was like, I'm just ready to drop out of college and go on the road and never look back. And that's kind of where they all were too. Just get out of town.
That actually leads me to my next question. So obviously, it's every band's goal to make it big. But like, what was the vision like you all had, and like what was the goal that the band started out with whenever you all decided, hey, let's go on the road? Was it just like, hey, let's see where it takes us? If it pushes us there, cool, or was it just like, hey, we're gonna make it?
No, it was pretty determined that we are going to go on tour and we're going to stay on tour until we get a record deal, and we're just going to keep pushing. So we it's really hard to get like a bunch of people to kind of get on board with that, to find the people with the right mindset, and then the talent, and then the not even just musical talent, but then have at least somebody in the band that can write songs that are going to be compelling enough
Yeah.
for people to want to listen to and care about. So there's really a lot. There's so much that has to go right to even make it to a band with as dismal of a career as we had. And you know, we're like
Honestly, I think
we're
another
very
thing.
successful in relativity to all people that ever played music. We're very, very successful, but yet not. So
Well, I'll go ahead and tell you this, man, and I know you don't need anything, but I have a lot of people that are very excited to see this interview because of who you played with. I know a lot of people in this area enjoy your all's music a lot, including myself. I mean, that's obvious. I've been to a few of your all shows, and
yeah,
it's so because that's one thing that I have noticed across some of the interviews. You always kind of downplay what you guys were, and I at least want to let you know that I know at least in this area and a few areas that you guys toured a lot. You guys mean a lot to a lot of people.
I know, and I realize it. I guess what it is like you're always measuring yourself against people, your peers or whatever.
Yeah,
So I am at the same time, I am simultaneously aware that our band was very much adored by you know I don't want to call it a small audience because it's bigger than most bands could hope for, but in relative to the music
yeah,
industry, a pretty small audience. But I know we have fans that are like super, super into our band, and
yeah,
our records meant a lot to them. And I mean, I'm proud of our music and stuff. Like
yeah,
I know, all right, I'm not trying to be humble. I know our band was good.
yeah,
I get it. I
yeah,
think we were good. I know we were very, very good and wrote very, very good music and had very cool records and all that. It's just like, when you're in the industry, and we're just opening up for people usually.
yeah.
And so
I mean, I get it
uh
because in the same aspect, with me podcasting, I see people are always mentioning someone like Joe Rogan or
yeah.
other. I get where you're coming from, and sometimes I have to step back and say, for what you're doing, like you're doing a good job. You just got to keep grinding in what I like at this point for me. I'm like, you just got to keep grinding in what you're doing now. And at some point, something will happen.
Well, that's an interesting comparison too, because Joe Rogan is the U2 of podcasting.
Yeah,
And so no band should expect to ever be the U2 of
exactly.
podcasting, but maybe you could be, the O Sleeper. I'm trying to think of a band. I don't know. Like, just you can have a career doing anything without, you know, there's no hope for you to be Joe Rogan. Basically, that's what
Yeah.
you. everybody should feel that way about whatever they're doing. Like, there's
Absolutely.
no hope for you to be Mike Trout or Ken Griffey or uh, who's good at other sports.
Yeah. LeBron James or
LeBron.
Michael
Okay.
Jordan. Yeah.
Whatever. Yeah. Joe Rogan for podcasting, YouTube for bands, Radiohead, whatever. But that doesn't mean that there's not a whole lot of people beneath them
Exactly.
that do really well, and it was worth their time
Yeah.
to pursue it.
So one thing I wanted to bring up as well, I think another thing that, because you said it's very difficult to find guys like that have the same mind. It's not only that, at that age too, because you guys are all around the same age, and most of the time, guys at that age, they're like, yeah, let's go party or do other things like that. They're not looking to go on the road and leave where they're from for that long and just grind until they get to where they want to go.
Yeah. Well, a little bit of that is like, it's going on tour is like, you're kind of saying, let's go party. Like, let's buck the idea, like, screw going to college, screw just working at a wing stop. I think that's where Cody was working at, or something. I think it was Wow Wings or Wing Stop. I can't remember. I was working in a movie theater. Like, what, that wasn't the life you wanted, and nobody was interested in college at that time. Nobody had a reason to be. Nobody was trying to be a doctor or an engineer. Everybody was basically just going to college just to do something.
Yeah.
Because you had to do something. Um, so to me, that was like the most wild adventure you could take. Like, oh, we're gonna quit everything and just go live in a van. And I remember feeling like kind of snobby about it. Like, oh, I got all these friends back home, like in you know English 300 right now, like, or whatever the course is,
Yeah.
however college courses work. Like, and I'm in you know Los Angeles. Why would I? And I'm gonna play a show tonight.
Yeah.
Why
Like
would I
it.
ever? Why would I ever want to do anything else? I didn't have any money, but the band, the band would buy in and out after the show, and like everything was gonna be all right. Like, that was, uh, you know, kind of that best days of your life type of thing. Like, you had no worries, no debt, no bills, no bills.
Yeah.
You're just,
That's
you're
because
just
that was
out
really
there.
before cell phones were really big for everyone. I mean, people
Yeah.
had cell phones, but that was really, I feel like, before every person had a cell phone.
I had one, but it was like, my dad gave me a cell phone when I went to college or late high school, and it was that type of thing. Like, you had like 100 minutes. Like, you
Yeah.
couldn't really use it.
Yeah.
I could send like 10 text messages or something like that. So it was an emergency check-in at home type thing. But
And
yeah,
kids
like,
today don't know anything about nights and weekends, man. They're spoiled.
dude, I mean, we had to print off MapQuest directions every morning before I got really, I was our navigator. So I would, read the maps and navigate and stuff like that if we needed to, call
That
out
brings
mile
that brings up a
markers.
good
Yeah.
point. What was every person's like thing? So who drove?
We all drove, but TJ and Colin in the early years drove the most. Um, I would help with navigating. Cody would usually sit near the back and like play guitar, read books, like whatever. But I mean, we all took shifts driving. Usually it was like, we didn't have standard shifts. It'd just be like, if TJ or Colin didn't feel like driving, they'd be like, hey, who will drive right now? And then if you did an overnight drive, we would break it up by mileage. So instead of time, you just had a mileage that you're responsible for. And so it was on you how fast or slow that got done. So, but if we had a 500-mile drive, everybody, hey, you have 100 miles, to knock out, because you couldn't. It's too hard to estimate exactly how much time would need to be broken down. So
Traffic or
yep,
anything?
you just do it by miles. So
So what year was you guys start touring? What, 2002? I guess that
we
was, or
started touring in '03. So I joined in May of 2003, and we hit the road like, we small baby steps, like, okay, let's go out for a week to Texas, come back, let's go do some Gulf Coast. Like, we started doing just these small kind of loops, like, all right, North Louisiana, Dallas, all right, come home, all right, Gulf Coast, Birmingham, come home, Atlanta, swing out a little Nashville, Little Rock, get back. And then that fall we were like, okay, let's go to Boston, and let's and you do that by saying you book a show in Boston, and now you're like, all right, we got to get there, and then you got those shows, but you're like, well, we got to get home somehow. So that's how that works. And there were days where you didn't have filled, and you just, days leading up to it, just getting on whatever local music sites or forums or anything, just trying to find anything you could to play a show, which puts you in some weird situations. Um, Very strange, but yeah, so we started creating those loops, and so eventually it turned into, all right, we got this East Coast loop. Now we have some contacts. They'll let us come back and play, and now let's try this West Coast thing. And we would just kind of do figure eights all across the country. And every time on the way back, we would pretty much always hit Springfield, Missouri, and Little Rock because people there,
Yeah.
and North Louisiana and Baton Rouge and New Orleans, because we could always get shows there. So,
So,
um,
do you remember the first song that you guys played when you were officially a part of the band? Do you remember what it was?
I know the first song we wrote while I was in the band, the first song we wrote was The Nothing That Kills. And we wrote that pretty quickly after I joined the band. Everything on our first record um, I was around when we started writing those. So they had two EPs that were super early on that they had written and recorded with the other drummer, Brian. Um, and then from there it was all me. So
So, how many tours did you guys go on before you all released "Son, I Loved You at Your Darkest"?
before we released it, I don't know. We did, we went summer of 2003 and we basically, the only breaks we took were Christmas and to make that record. Summer of 2005 is when it came out. I mean, I don't want to exaggerate, but I wouldn't be surprised if we played 500 shows in that time period, 400, 500 maybe.
Yeah.
I mean, we just left and we're just like, let's never come home.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
then if you count that from leading up to that record coming out through the end of that year, we did, so 2005. I looked at it one time. The last, something like the last 35 weeks of 2005, we were on the road for 33 of those weeks.
Wow.
We had like a 1.5 week break in between a tour, and we couldn't go home because Katrina hit while we were out, and you couldn't
Yeah, you
you
couldn't go
basically
into it.
you couldn't get back to South Louisiana really. So yeah, so we were basically gone for 35 weeks.
That's insane. So, you mentioned the writing of the music, and that's what your passion is mostly, in making music sound good. Who was at the beginning, or with that first record? Who was that? Like a group thing? Was it you and Cody, or you and who wrote most of the music, or was it kind of like a group effort type thing?
No, I mean, it's always been Cody, pretty much always. So Cody basically, has probably written, I'm almost certain he's probably written every guitar part, um, most of the melodies and stuff. Him and TJ would work together on lyrics, and Cody wrote the lyrics too. So they would work together on lyrics and how they fit into a song, like if it was a screaming part, like timing and like changing stuff up like that, and be creative in that way. But Cody was, as far as creative goes, Cody 90%, maybe more. I don't know. I think from behind the drum set, I took kind of I didn't play any other instruments, so I would help with like arranging and kind of almost like producing from in the practice room. Like, yeah, that's good. No, that's no good. I get like, if I have an opinion about something that I feel strongly about, I will fight for it and argue for it until I either win or lose. And so, you know, and to me, when you're writing music like that, I think that's what, and I've tried to tell. We've had other people come into our band, later down the road, and me and Cody have talked about this, or me and TJ, and some people just aren't strong-willed enough in those creative settings to like get their ideas across. And like sometimes somebody will will seem, upset that their idea didn't like get used or that nobody's digging it. But you gotta sell those ideas and show why they work.
Yeah.
And on the flip side, I was always just like, if it sucks, it sucks. Like, you have to tell me. And that was one thing me and Cody were always very good at, is if he hated something and was like against it, like I knew, and vice versa. Like, we had a pretty good rapport as that goes. Like, if I was like, dude, this sucks, um, he was pretty good about like, okay, I trust this opinion in this moment. So as far as that, yeah, that was a good, there was a good working relationship creatively there. But Chris Lott, who played guitar on Come Now Sleep,
Hmm.
he was very instrumental as far as I mean, sorry, earlier I said that Cody wrote almost, all the guitar parts. That's not true. Chris Lott, when on Come Now Sleep, wrote a lot of his guitar parts,
Yeah.
because a lot of it was very avant-garde or freestyle. I don't know guitar talk, not solos, but and that's something they would work together. They lived together in an apartment, and they would just like play guitar together. And Cody would still like override stuff and be like, "No, I don't want to do that." But Chris had a lot of freedom there. So the guitars you hear from Chris are like coming from Chris.
I
So
feel like you all have a very distinct sound. Like you could play one of your all songs without lyrics, and to me, I could pick out which of them would be your all sound because of the type of guitar riffs or whatever you're talking about. They're
yeah,
very distinct.
we were a guitar-driven band. Like most of the songs started with a guitar idea.
Hmm.
Not, I hope I'm not speaking incorrectly there. As far as I could tell, most of the songs started with a guitar idea.
Yeah.
It was very rare that I would notice Cody coming in, hey, I have this chorus,
Yeah.
and sing it. Like there's a few, I think, off the last record, Scream Through the Walls, the song Maybe. I think I think maybe. Uh, I think that chorus might have been the first thing we heard, like, hey, I have this idea for this chorus, and sang it. And like when he sang that chorus and played it, like I was like, okay, that is a song. Like, we have to make that a song.
Yeah.
Uh, and then the funny thing is, I think we might have found another guitar part idea to pair with it to like make a verse. So a lot of stuff with him starts with an idea for a riff or a noodle or whatever.
So I want to kind of think back to, young Aaron, and when that album, you guys get to hear it for the first time. First off, I want to ask a different question I didn't even put on here, and then I want to ask. So first off, is it weird because I know I don't listen to any of my podcasts because it's kind of weird to hear myself. I feel like it may be different for you because you're playing an instrument, or is it still weird because you maybe are picking something out where you feel like you messed up? And the second part of that is, outside of that, explain the feeling of hearing your first record done and out, and just like what that feeling felt like.
Yeah. Um, well, as far as listening to your own band, I think when you first make a record, you listen to it a ton. You have to, because you're doing mixed notes and stuff like
Yeah.
that, and like trying to understand everything that's going on. So you kind of get sick of it. By the time it even comes out, you're like, I've heard this 100 times now. Like, I can't possibly listen to it anymore. I I go through phases and moods where I'm like, I want to go back and hear, a record, but I don't know when the last time I listened to our first record all the way through would have been. It might have been years. Our most recent record, I'll pick out random songs every once in a while and check them out. Um, yeah, you you've lived you've lived so much of it firsthand. You don't really feel the need to revisit it, and there's a lot of sometimes there's weird memories or tension or pain attached to like some of that stuff that you don't want to think about. Or our band, we've had a pretty tumultuous, you know up and down type of career, like breaking up, getting back together, that type of stuff. So
Yeah, I mean that
just
that the next question is actually about that, because right in June of 2006, you guys announced that you guys were breaking up. Like, what, like, can you think back on like what kind of went into the feelings of that? Because I mean, you guys obviously didn't end up breaking up at that point, but like,
Yeah,
what went into you guys saying, "Hey, we're at least going to take a break," or you
I
know,
don't know. It's kind of dumb looking back, really. I mean, TJ had decided to get married and decided he was going to leave and just go do a quote normal life and do that. Um, we had been on tour for 2 years, 2.5 years straight, and we're exhausted. The tour we decided to do, like we sat down and had that conversation where TJ was like, "Hey, I'm just gonna." That particular tour, it happened. We left for it. A month after my best friend Tim killed himself, who was friends with everybody in the band. Um, it's just really dark time, and we went on a tour in the winter that went through Canada, and we I don't want to say we didn't get along with the bands on tour, but it just wasn't quite our we just didn't like the tour much. We didn't feel
it was
like
just a lot of bad things at one time. It
a lot
sounds
of
like.
bad things at once. The tour, like it was kind of a really heavy tour, and we were kind of a heavy band, but not heavy enough for like the pit kids that like wanted to, especially if they weren't. It was a quote secular tour. It was
Yeah,
no tooth and nail bands or anything, which we wanted to do. We weren't trying to be a Christian band or anything. We were just a band, tooth and nail. That's just a whole other thing. But so it was just kind of a weird time, and TJ said he was going to leave, and we had that mentality. Well, if he's going to leave, how could we be a band? Like, if we're not all doing it, we can't do it. Um, and so that was why. And we're like, well, let's do a farewell tour. It was just so funny looking back. Like it felt like we've been doing the band forever, but we put out one record
yeah.
and had, I'd been in the band for 3 years at that time that we decided to quit. And it's like, well, shoot, what am I going to do now? Like, but yeah, it was weird. And then Tooth and Nail, they were able to convince us to stay together. And our farewell tour we did really well, and like a lot of people came out because that's what they do on farewell tours. We're like, what are we doing? Let's just keep going. And initially, TJ was going to stay in the band, um, and then when we started writing, and he was living in Hattiesburg, it just didn't make sense. Like we didn't know
Yeah,
how it was all going to work out. So we went on to do Come Now Sleep, which was more of a indie rock type of record. And we thought it was going to be way bigger than our first record because now we were going to be more accessible to the masses, right?
yeah.
And that is not how any of that works. Once you
So
carve out a niche
yeah,
in a genre where sell a lot of your debut record does really well, and you have all the right team in place, agent, labels ready to open the penny bank for you, and piggy bank, yeah, and spend the money on you, and then you turn in an indie rock record. You're just kind of dead in the water at that point.
so I mean, outside of TJ leaving, like, was that something that you guys had maybe always kind of wanted to go towards more of, or is it just something like it just happened out of necessity because he was gone?
it was more the style of music we were into. Like we didn't really overall nobody in the band really listened to a ton of heavy music. Some, like I listen to hardly any, and I don't listen to. I'll throw on Norma Jean sometimes because it's fun to watch my kids go crazy. Like
Yeah,
they think it's fun, and they're good. Like I know that there are bands that are heavy that are really good. So I'm not really saying anything bad about heavy, but I was never into metal growing up, never into really heavy music. Like Smashing Pumpkins would have been the heaviest thing I was ever into, and they're an alt rock band that kind of had a little edge to them, I
yeah.
guess. Billy's weird voice and some loud guitars, but uh, yeah, like we listen to like Jimmy World and stuff like that, and uh, Cody was really into Coheed and Cambria, um, which I think you can hear that in a lot of his guitar playing. Further Seems Forever, like bands like that. So that was like the natural progression. And Cody, he can't really like write what he thinks he should write or something like. So I don't even know if we felt like we should have written a heavy record or tried to stay in our genre. what that would have even looked like, or if we even had that, if we were capable of flipping that switch.
Yeah.
Because some bands are capable. They're just like, hey, this is what we do. This is what we need to keep doing if we want to buy a house.
Yeah.
And I respect that, honestly. I think it's pretty cool if you can play music and buy a house because of your music. So we were never able to do that. But we made some cool records that we really like.
Yeah.
But you pay
You
a price for that.
you brought up something that it's something that like you said was a dark time in your all's band, but on this album you all released, in my opinion, your all's most, I guess, emotion filled song, I would say, in Timothy,
Yeah.
which is about the friend that you lost. And the question I had a couple questions about this. So first, did you all write this song as kind of like a release of your all's own emotions, or did you all have something like in mind, like when you were writing this, that hey, maybe this could help someone else that's going through something like the same thing, or is going to go through the same thing and losing someone close to them? Or was that even
Well,
like, did that even cross your all's mind whenever you all were writing it?
I don't know. And well, I would say questions like that can be a little hard because I can only speak for myself because I don't know what Cody's thinking when he's writing. And I don't think Cody necessarily wants to spoon feed anybody and have them take a song a certain way. There's a couple things that people just take the totally wrong way where it's just like The Widow. Uh, people would walk up and say, "I'm so sorry about your dad dying." You're like, okay, you're missing the metaphor here.
Yeah,
He's still alive. He's dead now, but when
yeah,
he wrote the song, it was like he was dead. It's
yeah. I that's not anything I ever got from that. That's,
yeah.
yeah, I would
Some
have.
people, yep. Some people think, yeah, it's about his dead dad. Like, okay, it's the whole song is full of metaphors. But okay, you don't you don't get it. It's fine. But I mean, as far as I go, I don't know. I'm never thinking too much outside of like what's happening in the room at the moment. Like, how does this sound? How does it feel? How is it all working together? Like the musicality and rhythms and dynamics. Like, I'm really big on dynamics. And as far as Cody writing lyrics, I don't know. I don't think he thinks of it as like, I hope this helps somebody.
Yeah,
And I don't know. I don't know of a lyricist that I've ever heard said that I believed them. It seems like something, a PR type thing you would say.
yeah,
Like, I hope if this song means something to you, it'll be worth it. Like that, that doesn't sound right to me because most people I know that write lyrics or that are those type of creative, introspective people, like it really is like, I mean, I think Cody's talked about it before, like the lyrics he's writing kind of only are as meaningful and their shelf life is when he wrote them, right? Like that's how
yeah,
long the shelf life is on them. So you could write something and not feel the same way. And he's talked about, like playing The Widow, for instance. There was a time where it was hard for him to play it because he didn't feel it, or just different songs where like I wrote that song, but I don't feel that way anymore. So how can I play it? And we would talk, we're like, well, you just have to, when we're playing live, it is for them. It's not for us, right?
yeah.
It's for the fans. Like that's why you perform. Because otherwise, I don't know.
It makes
We're
me
playing
kind
the
of feel
same
bad at
songs.
that point because it almost makes you sound like you're kind of like in a circus and someone's just like, yeah, just dance. I
A
mean,
little, well, but it is that a little bit. Like,
yeah.
that's people pay. Listen, I pay money. I love Coldplay, and I'm not ashamed.
Well, look,
Um,
you don't got to apologize to me.
okay,
You speaking, you've already seen them live, and that's by far the best show I've ever seen live. And I have no
yeah,
problem admitting that I like
it's
Coldplay's
it's
music.
great. But yeah, you pay to go see Coldplay, and they better play Yellow, and they
Yeah,
like they better play, and they better mean it. Like you want them to mean it. Like you want to feel like at least that they care that they're playing it. And so there's an aspect to that. The whole like, I mean, I don't think you don't owe people anything. You definitely don't owe people anything as far as like after you get off that stage. Like I never felt obligated to go out and talk to anybody or stand by a merch table or
hmm
anything. If I didn't feel like it, I would just, that was how I tried my best to stay sane on tour. And other people in my band weren't good about it. They're like, oh, I hate talking to, I just got stuck talking to this person. I'm like, you don't have to go out there. Like, they paid the ticket to watch you play on stage, and that's what they got for their money. And that is okay. That was enough. So you don't have to constantly give yourself to everyone all the time. So I I don't concern myself with stuff, but I think you do have an obligation to put on the best show you can and play good, and you know, in that sense, give them what they want. But
Yeah.
we had tours where we didn't play Bloodsucker Part 2 because we just didn't want to, and sorry,
Yeah.
like we're just we have a lot of songs, so
You have to pick and pry and put stuff in different places and figure out what's working for that tour. Right? Yeah. So
yeah,
I know one of the first VIPs that I saw you all, I asked you all a question about this song, and I asked, do you think you guys would play it again? And you said, a lot of the things that you said about the song, that's, it's a difficult song to talk about, or difficult song to play because of the emotions that's in it. But you said one of the things that stuck out to me was that you said it's kind of disappointing at the same time, though, because I feel like it's some of the best music we've ever written. Do you
yeah.
think that in the future that it may get to a point to where you all can appreciate what that is, and maybe it goes back on a set list, or do you think it's just it is where it is now, like it has a
Yeah.
shelf, like you were saying?
Wait, you're talking about Timothy, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, 5 years ago on our 10-year anniversary tour, we did some shows that were not our Son I Loved It's Your Darkest shows. They were just like TJ had to go home for work, and so we
Yeah.
played all stuff from all the records, and we played it on that tour. I don't know, like it's just it feels kind of in the band specifically has deferred to me on that song because like me and Tim, he was my best friend. Which is I kind of don't even feel right about. Like if the band wants to play it, I should just play it. But it is hard to play, and because it's the music and the lyrics are so intense, and it's about something so personal. And every time you play it, man, you're like reliving that moment because the lyrics for that song are like about that moment that you know Cody found out
Yeah.
what had happened. And so just putting yourself through that, like if you're doing like a 30-day tour, putting yourself through that every night, it's like kind of, I don't know, it's kind of cruel to yourself in
And
a
I
way.
I want people that don't know that song, that are going to listen to this podcast, like, go and listen to that song, because, and I'm not just saying that because you're on here. I would say this to anyone. It really is one of the most beautiful songs you'll ever hear, especially now that you hear from the person that it involves as far as the band member. Like, there's so much raw emotion in that song, and you can hear it. You can hear it from the lyrics to the guitar and that there's so much in that, a part of that song, that, like, you have to be ready. Like, I can understand, because I have to be ready just to listen to it.
Yeah.
You all wrote it and lived through that. So, like, it's the first time I heard it, I it brought me to tears, man. Like, it's seriously one of those songs, man, that you feel so much raw emotion in, like, you can't help but, I don't know, it's beautiful, to be honest with you.
Well, every time we played it, it's been an experience. And like you can tell, remember the first time we played it at a small bar in Baton Rouge. And it was kind of like the first show we'd played in a while. We just did like a small 100-cap room. It was packed. And we're like, we're going to play a few new songs. And like nobody had ever heard it before. And you could tell it like immediately had that impact like on people. And it was the first time I'd play it live. And it like, I don't know, messed me up. Like,
Yeah.
I was like, God, why'd we write this song?
Yeah.
Like now we're going to be expected to play it. And it is, as far as the music goes, it's a pretty fun song to play live. There's a lot of cool dynamics, and you get to jam for a long time at the end. Like Chris Lott always wanted to play it, like no matter what, because he got to mess around on the guitar for 10 minutes at the end.
Yeah.
And I'd be like, I don't know. It was just, I hated playing it. There was a period of time where I just refused to play it. And it was pretty selfish, but maybe necessary. So
Yeah.
um, yeah, I don't know. It's one of those songs where you kind of did too good of a job of
Yeah.
capturing the emotion and the spirit of what you're trying to communicate, I guess. All around, just lyrics to music, like everything. So,
Yeah.
but it's authentic. I think that's what it is. It's just like really authentic. So
So you all didn't after that. Let's move on because I don't want to spend too much time on that and bring the attitude down. So you all didn't waste very
no,
much time.
let's talk about the NLCS this year.
Yeah. Well, see, we'll talk about this later, but my favorite team is actually in your all's division, and I don't hate the Braves though, because two of my two brothers are big Braves fans, so I don't have
Yeah,
a problem with the Braves. But you all didn't waste any time as y'all announced the spring of 2008 y'all are going to be recording another album.
yeah.
And in January 2009, you all released Gates, and I think they told you this, but my sister-in-law Jennifer, the one that always comes to talk to you with Matt, she actually walked down the aisle at their wedding to that song.
Really?
I don't know if they ever told you that, but if they
Nope.
didn't, I'm breaking that to you right now on here. And I thought that was pretty cool that they did that.
That's
Because
interesting.
they actually,
I
I
mean,
don't know if you remember this, they actually emailed you all and asked you all to play at their wedding, but you all said you all couldn't do it.
yeah, that wedding band's not really our
Yeah.
our
Yeah. I mean,
thing.
it made
I don't
sense.
know. I don't know what the amount of money would have to be to get us to make a move on that. It'd have to be more than anybody would be willing, unless we found out that Elon Musk was a fan. I don't think the money there's any amount of money that could move us to do that. That's interesting. I mean, I guess it kind of makes sense. It seems like kind of I mean, it's not a depressing song. It's kind of
It's really somber, I guess you would say.
yeah.
But it worked. I mean, it worked because that's not that they're like a depressing couple or anything, but like it worked because they both love you guys so much.
Yeah.
And it was something that kind of it was their thing together because
Well,
they actually became friends with you because indirect, like,
listen, I have a funny story about wedding songs in our band. I mean, that's great that I'm glad it worked. I could see how it could work. We had a girl tell us that her and her dad danced to one of our songs at her wedding.
oh
And the
no.
song is called, the song was Daughter, which
Yeah.
if,
It's
if you're listening to this and you don't know the song, I encourage you to go read the lyrics. It is not a love song about your daughter. It's something else.
that's oh man. Yeah, that's
It's
rough.
about it's in the realm of the lust and sex stuff, not father-daughter weird stuff. See, now we're off the rails here.
Yeah.
I'm just
It's all I appreciate you bringing telling the story. That's it
and
is a bit odd.
we were like, oh, all right, that
Cool.
I don't get that at all, but
Thanks for coming out.
yeah.
So I read that Cody and a friend of yours wrote or recorded a lot of Hell or High Water. How much creative input did you kind of have on that album?
I mean, kind of just the normal amount that I generally would have. Cody was a little more immersed in that. He like lived at this studio for like 3 months and kind of mad scientist vibe type of
Yeah.
thing. You know, that process was a little different than the other. Coming Out Sleep, it was like we all lived in the same city and we'd get together once or twice a week
Mm-hmm.
and really focused like writing. And then 3 weeks leading up to going to record like every day, like getting together for a few hours writing, trying to finish the record. And then a 6-week recording process in Atlanta where we're all together every day, that type of thing. So Hell or High Water was very different. Like I went up at one point to do like pre-production, like a week. Cody had been sending me songs and stuff like that, and we went up and like wrote drum parts and finished writing some of the songs. Actually, Robert Chisholm, the singer for Jonesetta, was hanging out playing bass while we were finishing the writing for those. He was like our stand-in bass player.
Mhm.
Um, so, and then I came back and recorded my drum parts, and then I came back a different time and just kind of listened to stuff. But Hell or High Water was, I mean, it was very much Cody. More than any other record, because he was the only one there the whole time, like every day, all day.
Yeah.
He was engineering it. He was basically producing it. He played most, if not all, of the bass parts on Hell or High Water. He's a good bass player. He was in a ska. Him and Colin were in a ska band before As Hits Burn, and Cody was the bass player, not the guitar player. Bass was his first instrument. Um, so yeah, it was a different process. But as far as drums go, and the way me and Cody worked together on that, pretty much the same, just a little less time, a little less drawn out, over time, more condensed.
I
Definitely.
got to ask a question. So you bring up different parts of being in the studio and being together and all that stuff. What would be, in your opinion, is there something that every time is the most difficult part of recording an album, or is it usually the 4 times that you guys kind of got together to record an album, there was something different that maybe kind of hit out of a different direction?
I think the hardest part is the pressure of the end date and like your progress and like feeling like you're moving fast enough, because you don't want to rush and you don't want to feel like you're missing something or feel like something could be better. And that's part of having a producer, is like, hey, this is good, let's move on, because you have to move on at some point. Like, you play a part and you gotta go to the next part, or depending on how you're recording, um, we would pretty much all our stuff was tracked, individually, like lay down the drum tracks and then lay everything on top of that. So no, we never did a live recording or anything. It's the yeah it's that clock, that calendar, like here's our last day in the studio, and we didn't, on Scream Through the Walls, we didn't hit it. Like, we went way over, and Cody had to work on it for months after it was over. There's a lot of reasons for that, but in the old days, when we were on tooth and nail, like, we had pretty defined timelines. Like, hey, this is when the record has to be done. Like,
Yeah.
we will have a finished record by the time we leave the studio. So I think that was the most stressful part, definitely for Cody, like the idea of like running out of time. Other than that, I think it's fun. Like, especially, you just get to go. Like, when we did Come Not Sleep, we got to go to just live in a hotel in Atlanta for 6 weeks, and the only thing you had to think about was going to the studio. And I was done with drums after 3 days. So then I'm just
Listening
kind
to
of
everybody else.
I'm just there to help with an extra ear or whatever. But not that you really need that, because you got Matt Goldman, who's the man, and Cody knows what he wants. So pretty easy for me, actually.
So that album is actually, from top to bottom, that's probably my favorite album. I from just as far as beginning to end, every album has plenty of songs that I love on it, but that album, I feel like I love that album. There's so many great songs on that album, in my opinion.
Yeah.
But listen, again, I keep referring to that same podcast. You said pretty much after this point, because you guys broke up again, pretty much. Correct?
Which podcast is this? I'm just curious.
I think it was called like Music Downtown, maybe, or something. It was, you recorded it with 2 guys, and one of the guys you knew was his brother.
Yeah. I know what you're
and you guys tried to stack the Budweiser cans in front of the guy during the podcast. So it was a few years ago. So, but it was interesting because I got to hear a lot of things because I couldn't find a lot of things outside of just strictly band stuff on you. So it was good to hear you speak a lot about yourself.
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
But you mentioned that after you guys kind of took that hiatus, that was when you kind of pushed yourself into the cooking realm, because you said you watched a lot of Food Network, and you said you started as a line cook at a restaurant, correct?
Yeah. We came off the road. What was that, like 2008? Yeah, we did. Colin was going to have a kid, and we didn't know. I don't know. Coming out sleep wasn't doing that good. Another one of those things where we were just very short-sighted about what our band could be.
Mm-hmm.
And how we were set up better than I thought. And if we just kind of started grinding it out and carved out a niche for that new sound, I think we would have been okay. I think we would have started getting more towards that we wanted and stuff like that, and kind of figured out how to make it work.
Mm-hmm.
But we had this, I don't know, kind of fatalist, just like, oh, it's over, we're done. So everybody started trying to figure out what the heck they were going to do after. And so I had just got married, first marriage, and well, yeah, technically it never happened because it was annulled, but that's a whole other thing. It's okay, you can laugh at that. Not a fresh wound.
Yeah.
And so I was like, all right, I got to get a job. And yeah, I had started watching the Food Network and never cared about cooking. Liked to eat, but in the same way everybody liked to eat. Like I wasn't like into like cool stuff,
Yeah.
Yeah, and I was just like, this is all pretty cool. Like, started watching some of those Bobby Flay shows, and then started which is kind of goofy. He's not the coolest of TV chefs. If you're into the food world, not looked down on, but just kind of vanilla, I guess. He's good though. He's actually a very talented chef, and I've heard his restaurants are actually very good. But yeah, then I got into Anthony Bourdain, following his, reading his books and watching his shows, and that along with going down and getting a job in a kitchen as a line cook, it just kind of set me on a path for getting turned on to really caring about cooking and food. And just a year before that, you would have never seen me trying an oyster or anything.
Yeah.
Like I was like not hip with it.
So who would you credit the most out of like that first? Because I know you talked about there was a lot of people at that restaurant that kind of molded you into or taught you how to cook certain things. Like who was it? Was there a certain person that kind of like took you under their wing that helped you, or was it just a culmination of all of them?
Well, yeah, it was kind of just this culture I found myself in, and a few different. There's these two. They're all from Baton Rouge, but one's this guy. He was the sous chef at one of these restaurants I worked at, Eric Sibley, and he had worked at some high end restaurants in Chicago and gone back and forth between there and Baton Rouge. He was just super talented and technically sound, and could just teach you a lot of stuff. Very cocky, kind of an asshole, would yell at you, that type of thing. But I liked it. Like I kind of enjoyed that abuse. And then a couple of the people I worked with, this Christy and Lance, they're married now. They got married within a couple years of us all working together. And they're just Cajun. They're grow up Cajun, eating all that Cajun stuff, and they just kind of showed me the ropes of like making all that cool gumbo and jambalaya and all that junk. And then that chef Sibley, picked up some fancy technical stuff from him. So that kind of set me on my way. A combination of that within like finding the right like resources, like getting into what Anthony Bourdain was doing, watching his shows, reading his books. A couple other Michael Ruhlman is a really good food writer. Read a book called Devil in the Kitchen by Marco Pierre White. Marco Pierre White was like the first kind of rock star chef in the 90s.
Yeah.
In London. Not super famous in America back then, but if you were into the food world, he would be like the modern day Gordon Ramsay. Gordon Ramsay was actually one of his line cooks back then. Like he abused the crap out of Gordon Ramsay. Like what you see Gordon Ramsay do to people
that was
on
done to him.
Yeah, this guy was that to him. So yeah, so you just kind of start falling into that world and finding all these resources and voices of people that just know what they're talking about. And I just started soaking it up, and I just haven't stopped. Like I just kind of obsessed with it. Been in and out of restaurant kitchens, but I don't really like. That's always just been kind of a thing. Oh, I need a job right now. Okay, I'll go. I can go cook. Worst case scenario, I can always go cook,
Yeah.
but it's not much money. But if you have to do something and make money doing
It's fair.
something,
I feel like in a lot of areas too. I mean, there are certain ones. I feel like it's very underappreciated as well. Because someone doesn't. Oh, This doesn't. This isn't what I thought it was going to be. But it's like, yeah, that's what you ordered though, and it's always looked on as you doing something incorrectly when probably it's just a person that didn't know how to order correctly.
yeah, I mean, there's a lot of people that just don't know what they're doing when they walk in, depending on the type of restaurant too. You know,
Yeah.
if you're at a higher end restaurant or a restaurant that is kind of niche and trying to do something a certain way. Well, I don't know. Let's just say there's a burger place in San Francisco that's on a dock that I like a lot, and kind of just like crappy, like greasy burgers. But that's my favorite type of burger. But like they won't put ketchup on your burger. Like they won't do it. Like they have ketchup packets that you can get, but if you ask for ketchup, they don't have it. They don't have tomatoes. They don't have lettuce. They have onions and pickles and mustard, and that's what they'll put on your burger, and they won't put anything else on it.
I can appreciate that. I'm always the type of person that people get on me because I order my burger plain, and I'm like, I shouldn't have to put anything on a burger for it to be good. But then they're like, yeah, but it makes it better. I'm like, I understand that, but like, I don't, I don't necessarily like places like WW Cousins where they have the burger bar because it's like I don't like I'm not putting all that stuff on it.
The public cannot be trusted to make
That
their own burger, in my opinion. I think we need to be told what is the good burger, and so I like places like that. Like, hey, here's our burger. Here's how it's made, and that's the way it is. I love In and Out. Like In and Out is very customizable, and their whole thing is like ultra customer service and stuff.
mhm.
And so I have the way I get my burger at In and Out, and I think the way I get my burger In and Out is the right way, and it's the way that everybody should get it. But um, Shake Shack, they have lettuce tomato on their burger. They don't have onion or pickle. When I go to Shake Shack, I get it how they make it because I think that version of their burger is the best way to get it.
Yeah.
But lettuce tomato on a burger, I'd hardly ever make it like that unless I'm feeling nostalgic and want a backyard grilled burger like my parents used to make,
Yeah.
that had lettuce and tomato, onion, pickle, ketchup. So, um, yeah, no, a lot of times people should not be left to their own devices to decide what food they should be eating because then you get that thing where they ordered it a certain way and then it's not good. And they're like, well, that's not how we make it. And
Yeah.
so you shouldn't have ordered it that way. Like if you go to a barbecue place and you don't like the sauce, like, well, okay, but how was the barbecue? Was
Yeah.
the meat good or did the sauce mess it up? So
So this may be too general of a question, but what's the favorite thing of yourself that you cook?
I love cooking Italian food. I like where that takes me mentally
Yeah.
and in my soul. I love putting on some New York jazz vibes on Spotify and making a tomato sauce with some meatballs. Deep down, I looked up like my name, my heritage, Lunsford, and I'm just boring, plain, like English white. You know, we had a crest, like all that stuff, and I think
Yeah.
we're from by a river, like the river Luns or something like that. I don't know. And it's just so like in a way I'm so disappointed with who I thank God I'm a southerner. Like thank
Yeah.
God that I'm a southerner and not boring English crest person from like Pennsylvania or something awful. uh so at least I have growing up in the South.
Yeah.
um I wish I was Italian or I wish I was Jewish or Korean or something. Like I wish I had grown up with like I wish I I think I wish I was like an Italian Catholic or something like that, who grew up doing the Feast of Seven Fishes on, Christmas Eve or whenever it is they do it, and Sunday gravy, and like there's something missing. I'm not connecting with with my roots, right? Although when I was in England and London, I felt very at home. So I guess there's something to that. I don't know, but maybe everybody feels that way about who they are, where they came from. That it's just a little bit boring to them. And so, like Italian, like cooking Italian or cooking French, or God forbid, I've gotten better at cooking some Asian stuff and Indian, gotten better, but it's kind of just a whole different world from southern, southern food or European influenced food. So, yeah, it's escapism, I guess, when I can turn on that music and make something and be good at it. Like, I'm really good at making Italian food, and my last name's Lunsford. And I do not have 1 ounce of DNA in my family history that I think is Italian at all. I've started to look, and I'm not finding it. My wife is half French Canadian, which is kind of cool, I guess.
I mean, you played Super Mario Brothers one time, so I mean that's enough Italian. Yeah.
So yeah, I'm sad about my heritage, but thank God I'm from the South. That's my
so
only
what is
grace.
Not yours? What's everyone else like? What's the favorite thing? What's your wife's favorite thing that you cook?
Oh, I don't know. She loves when I make boeuf bourguignon, which is a French beef stew with red wine. She really loves that. I don't know what other people like. I mean, I make really good barbecue. People like that. I guess I've never asked. I should ask what people really like that I make. I don't know what she would say the best thing I've ever made for her is, or what she had to pick. What that would be. But she always asks me to make mashed potatoes, and I'm just like, okay, like you could make that though.
So you all got back together in 2012, and you played the "Son I Love You" at Your Darkest tour. And how was it after taking such a long break and getting most of everybody back together to play that tour? I mean, was that kind of cool? Like, hey, this is kind of like we're young again.
Yeah, we did that Unsilent Night festival in Dallas, and it was around Christmas. Me and Cassie, my wife, were just talking about this tonight, how much fun that weekend was, because we hadn't played a show in years. Me and her just got married. Like, she hadn't really got to hang out. That she'd never seen us play. Like, and we got paid a lot of money to go play that show, plus flights and hotels and all this stuff. Sold a ton of merch. So we just kind of lived it up for a weekend. Like, I think we ended up in a limo at some point, driving around partying. Wow. Our tour manager, Brian, like found us a limo, just some limo driver sitting outside the hotel, and he was, hey, how much for the hour? We all piled in and went out and partied. It's just a wild weekend. Like, we were saying how much we went to Chili's one of the nights for some reason. And like, it was just so fun just to be back together with everybody, because we hadn't all been in the same place for years at that point. So that was just fun. Like, the show was secondary. Like, the show was overwhelming. It was crazy. Like, there was several thousand people there, and it was wild, really wild. So the most fun. The practicing was the worst, and then the show was pretty good, but then the hanging out was the best part for sure.
Yeah. So also during that time, you also, started your, I don't know how to say this. You became an author as well, and you started writing some books. So you've written what, three books now?
Yeah.
I mean, we won't take up a whole lot of time, but kind of give us like a synopsis of like what all 3 of them are about, and then let everybody know where they can actually find them so they can buy them.
Yeah, The first one is called Backstage, How I Almost Got Rich Playing Drums in a Christian Hardcore Band. And it's just about how As Cities Burn started in our early years. And it's a memoir. And, the story arc is a lot of what we've already talked about, how we just started going on tour and writing that first record. And the overall theme is that we kind of fell short of what we could have been as far as commercially goes.
Yeah.
Not creatively, or legacy or anything like that, but just, I thought we were going to be a much more successful band commercially, and a lot of other people did too. So that was kind of the crux of that book. And I think that book's actually a really good read. Like, I think it's good. I feel pretty proud of that one. So you should definitely go check that one out. It's on Amazon. And then I wrote a book about Emery called shoot. Are You Listening? Wait, what was I should know what my own books are called. It was like an origin story of Emery, and I went through how they got started. I like interviewed all of them, so there's a lot of like interviews and quotes, and then I mixed all that. I had like a chapter on each member. I mixed that with kind of telling their story coming from South Carolina and how they all got started. I thought that book was really cool, has a lot of cool stuff in it. I think people did not like that. We did like a focus group thing, and like they sent it to like Emery fans. Like half the people liked it and half like hated it. Like
It looks like it was called Emery, the Unlikely Masters of Rock. And
that's it, Emery. Yes. Yeah. Yeah, because their LLC name was the Masters of Rock, and the Unlikely Masters. Because there's rednecks from South Carolina.
Yeah,
like they had no business getting where they were, like as a band. But they willed it. They had the talent, songwriting, and all that, and they had more than that. They had just the willpower, the business sense, the drive. Like they were just able to make that thing go. So to me, it's pretty impressive. So, and then the third book was like a part 2 of As Cities Burn stuff. And honestly, I hate that book. I won't say I phoned it in, but it was not the same experience as that first book. Part of me wishes I hadn't written it. Part of me wishes I just left it be. But I think some people liked it. I sold some copies of it, so whatever.
So in 2015, you all released 2 new songs and had intentions on touring. Is that? That's right. You guys had intentions on touring then?
Well, we did the 10-year anniversary tour, but then we were going to do some more, and then we had another thing.
Because you all released a statement and said, we're done, and this time it's for good or something like that, pretty much.
Yeah. Spoiler alert, it wasn't.
Yeah. So I want to talk about, because you talked about this on a couple of things. There was some people that you got backlash from it because you were the one that put that statement out, right? And I think it's funny because it's like, I'm not a musician. Like I said, I've never been in a band, but I understand, like, you guys aren't the one that would be paying someone's money back for something like that.
Oh yeah, that's right. There were people. Yes.
And there were people mad. Like, are you guys going to give us our money back for stuff?
So there are a lot of different layers to that whole thing. There was this layer of like, people are upset that we were breaking up again or whatever, and they would say something like, one girl said something like, that's it, like after all those years of support, you're just gonna this. And I said something like, yeah, your personal thank you card is in the mail. And just because I it's kind of rude. People do this thing where they go on a Facebook page for a band or whatever, and they think they can just say whatever they want that might be kind of ridiculous or rude, and that you're not going to say anything back. And for me, just like,
And
I'm not
something
going to
that
let
a
you get
lot
away
of
with that.
people don't think about at the same time, you're probably not happy you guys are breaking up either. So at this
No,
point, you're
and
going through that as well. And it's like, there's a lot of things that are in this that, like, just say, at that point, say, hey, thank you for the years that you guys have done things. And,
yeah, there's a lot there. And I know I say like nothing's off topic for me and I'll talk about anything, but there's some stuff in regards to that I won't talk about publicly, because I just won't, or I can't, and don't want to, and don't want to stir all that up. And people, I'll just say, people just they don't fully understand everything that's going on
yeah.
when stuff like that is happening. And so me being the person that is actually on the internet and will respond to people, and I will be snarky and whatever, I'm gonna take the backlash for that stuff. But I always said to these people, like, I'm the only one here that would even talk to you. So, like, do the math here. But the thing with the ticket refunds, we were playing with these shows with acceptance. We were playing 3 or 4 shows with acceptance and opening for them.
Mm-hmm.
When you open for a band, or if you have headline billing on a show, the ticket, like if you printed off your ticket from Ticketmaster or whatever, it says that band's name on it. So if we say, hey, we're going on tour for these 3 shows with acceptance and we're opening for them, and you go buy a ticket, that ticket contract, it is not dependent on whether or not As Cities Burn shows up for that show. You bought a ticket to see Acceptance play, and there happened to be some other bands playing. And yes, we were going to be playing those shows, but then we weren't, and that happens all the time. And so there were some people like, so you're just gonna steal our money? So you're gonna steal money from your fans and not even refund it? And I'm just like trying to explain, like, that's not how any of this works. We don't have your money. We're not getting paid for these shows anymore, and we weren't going to get paid till after we played those shows.
Yeah.
Like, we don't have your money. It's not like you bought the ticket and we have your money now. And the promoter for those shows that booked Acceptance to play, they have your money. And so if you want a refund, you can go ask them for one. Sorry, I literally nothing I can do.
I mean,
And no,
that's the other
I'm
thing.
not going to send you your money back. I don't have it either.
Yeah. I mean, what
I don't have
happens
any money.
if there was, because like you said, you're not going to talk about it, and I'm not prying. I mean, what happens if there was a family emergency and you all had to stop because of something like that, instead of you all just breaking up? You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, but if it was something like that, I would have. Yeah,
are fans still going to get upset about that and still not be understanding? That's the thing that.
Well, they probably would be more understanding. That's the thing. I didn't give a lot of context, and I'm still not.
Yeah.
And I don't know if there will ever be a time that I can or should. It's a hard. People just have a perception of how bands operate and how their relationships must be. I'll just say, some of the comments were like, why don't you guys just drop this drummer that's causing all the problems and move on without him? And it's like, wow, you don't have a clue what you're talking about. And it's not just that there's other problems with other people. It's like, this is just a very complicated, long-term type of thing. And it's funny, we came back a few years later and did a record and did some tours. So it's just hard. It's just all hard, and there's no good explanation for any of it. But, it's like, it kind of goes back to what do you owe people? Really nothing, do
So
the best you can. You put out the music. If you play a show, play the show as good as you can. But
I want to take it back to the baseball thing, because this was something that I wanted to save until now, because now we've kind of covered where you have pretty much spanned the entire U.S. and everything. I have to ask, as a big baseball fan, did you get to visit a lot of ballparks whenever you were touring? And if yes, like, which ones were your favorites and which ones were your least favorites?
yeah, so not as much as you would think, because if you're playing a show,
Mm-hmm.
you're playing a show usually the time of day that a game would be going on, right?
Yeah.
And so you can't really do that. So you're looking at day offs. Um, but I have done day off games, and then I was able to do a few games when I was tour managing Emory. I was able to pop in. I had some time. We were in Houston. I popped in Minute Maid,
Yeah.
but only for 4 innings or whatever.
Yeah.
So some of that would go on. But I mean, I've been to a lot of ballparks. Let's see. I've been to run down the list. I've been to AT&T Park a bunch, or whatever it's called now, San Francisco. I lived in the Bay Area for a minute, so Oakland Coliseum, San Francisco. Been there a bunch. I've been to Dodger Stadium. Been to Petco a bunch because I lived in San Diego. Went to Anaheim, Phoenix. I've been to Ballpark at Arlington and Globe Life, the new one, because I went to the National League Championship Series. Been to the Minute Maid in Houston. Went to the Astrodome in Houston. Been to Fulton County, Turner Field, and SunTrust. Been to Old Yankee Stadium. I've been to Old Busch Stadium. I've done Milwaukee Brewers, Miller Park. Is that all of them? That might be all of them. Yeah, that might be all of them. Trying to think. AT&T Park in San Francisco is unbelievable. Petco is unbelievable. Petco is probably my favorite to go to because the weather is always so nice.
Yeah.
And it's super chill. Like, not a lot of people go to the games. So half the time you buy a ticket to the upper deck. Like, if you go to a day game on a Wednesday, you buy a ticket to the upper deck and they just have it closed off and they just direct you on down the field level.
That's nice. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I actually went to San Diego in 2017. That place is unbelievable. I took an Uber, and it was like the second or third day we were there, and I was like, man, every Uber driver has been so nice. I was like, it's crazy. It's almost like a southern town out west.
Yeah. It's not like LA at all. My wife's from San Diego, and I got to live there for a year, and I hate us for ever leaving. I don't know what we were thinking, but to me, it's the greatest place you could possibly live.
And I asked the Uber driver, I was like, why is it so people out here so nice? He said, look outside. I was like, yeah, that's a good point. Yeah. Point proven. Yeah, you win.
It's just perfect, like almost every day. So scenery's great, like just great Mexican food, great, all sorts of good stuff there. The Astrodome was truly a horrific place. It was horrific.
So it was time for it to go. Yeah.
Oh, it was awful. And I don't really like Minute Maid Park that much, but at least it's like, all right, we're in a ballpark or something. Like, it's a decent experience. Astrodome was terrible. Globe Life, the new Ranger Stadium, is awful. Is absolutely terrible. I feel bad that people are gonna have to go to that for the next 30 years.
True, man. That's
and it's not just because the game I went to during the playoffs, the Braves lost. We're losing. Listen to this. I flew to Dallas to go to Game 3 of the NLCS, and I flew the day before, got a hotel, hung around Dallas, all that stuff. Drove to the park early, walked around to see the park, whatever. Within 30 minutes, the Braves were losing 11-0. Game over. All that, and it was just over.
Yeah.
I think the Dodgers scored like 11 runs in the first inning. That was one of the worst days of my entire life, for sure.
I get what you're saying, because there's certain days that I think of what are some of the worst days of my life, and it's when Louisville loses certain games, like 2016. Lamar Jackson won the Heisman Trophy, and we traveled to Clemson, and we lose that game in Clemson, and we really should have won the game. Or in 2016 or 2014, Louisville loses the Sweet 16 to Kentucky, which is, our biggest rival. So I get where you're saying, like, those are some of the worst days of my life. So I get where you're coming from with that.
I don't know much about Louisville. I know as a college team that they do have prestige and there's something there. But it seems like one of those teams, like, it would be excruciating to be a fan of, because you're kind of in the fight, but you never really get into the end. Like
We
it's
in football, yes, I can agree with that. Basketball, I feel like we are basketball. We're a blue blood. We had the problems that happened, and with all the
yeah.
scandal and stuff, which I don't really like talking about either. But that lost a lot of our wins. And honestly, if they didn't take those wins away, we would be in the top 8 of all time wins.
Oh, is
So
that true? Okay.
yeah.
Because
So I mean, we're a
I
blue
didn't.
blood when it comes to that. But yeah,
Okay, I didn't realize they were that prestigious. Because I was thinking like, okay, Louisville, there's something, but there's still. When I think of college basketball, you got Kansas, Duke, UNC, Kentucky to get by, like a couple other ACC teams probably. Wake Forest.
I
No,
tell you
I
what,
don't
are
know.
you are you staying? Do you still stay in Nashville?
Yeah, yeah.
When things come down, I'll get you up here, and I'll take you to a basketball game, and
Oh,
I'll
I'd
I'll
love
get you
that.
up here. I'll get you up here. We'll get Matt and my other brother Ryan to go, and we'll go over to Louisville. I have season tickets to football and basketball. So
I'd
uh,
like that. That'd be fun. My wife works for Delta, so I don't think I'm supposed to say that. My wife works for an airline. Maybe bleep that out. So we fly for free. So
well, I mean Louisville's only a 2.5, 3 hour drive anyway, so
that's true. That's
yeah,
true.
it's not bad.
Yeah, and y'all got Canes. Y'all got Raising Canes in
Yes,
Louisville.
I will. I'm more than happy. Also, I'm obligated to say this to you because there are certain things that I had to ask both of my brothers that knew more stuff about you, especially Matt, because he personally knows you somewhat.
Yeah.
Some questions to ask you, and he said to make sure that I bring up that KFC is better than Popeyes. And I said, I'm not going to put that nonsense on my podcast. And he goes, I realize it's not true. It's just kind of a running joke that I have with him. Uh, so,
I
uh,
mean, you sound like a damn fool if you
yeah, like it,
even try to
yeah.
make that argument. So
Um, but he did actually. This was actually my next question. He told me to ask you about a situation about an open mic that you had in NYC.
in New York,
In New York. It was something about an open mic that happened in New York.
I haven't done.
Maybe you were in no. It was like maybe you were at an open mic or something in New York.
Oh, like a comedy show
I think
at
so.
the
Yeah.
Comedy Cellar with some famous comedians.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, yeah. No, sorry. I was like, because I've done stand-up comedy a little bit, but I never did it. I've never done it in New York. No, I was tour managing the Classic Crime, and Emory, what it was Matt and Toby from Emory were doing their side project. They were opening for Classic Crime, so we were all in New York together, and we had a day off, and we went into the city. We played Queens the night before, and then we had the day off. We went into Manhattan to hang out, and we went to a cool restaurant. And then I was like, "Let's go." It was between going to a Mets game and going to Comedy Cellar in West Village, which is an iconic comedy club. And I'm
Yeah.
like, "Let's go to Comedy Cellar." Like, who knows who could show up? It could be Dave Chappelle or Louis C.K. Before he was canceled.
Yeah.
Uh, like Jerry Seinfeld, you just never know. You never know who could show up. And so we decided on that, and it was like the late show, like the 11 o'clock show. And I remember we were sitting at a bar across the street getting a drink before we headed over there, and we were watching the Mets game on TV. And the Mets game turned out to be this really good game where the Mets came back and won in walk off, and we were like, oh, that would have been fun to go to. Man, we messed up.
Yeah.
Anyway, so we go over to Comedy Cellar, get in line, and there's like all these black SUVs outside, and we're like, this is weird. All right, something's going on. And so we go in, we get our table, sitting there. There's a host at a comedy show that comes out and does like 5 minutes, and then he starts bringing people up. So he brings up some comic you've never heard of, pretty good. And then the host comes back out, and they're like super big on how no phones, no cameras or anything. Like you get kicked out. Like make sure everybody knows it.
Now you're
And
really confused, like what's going on.
they always say that, but they're like super reiterating it. And we're like, all right. And so they bring up, he was like, welcome Wanda Sykes to
What?
the stage. And we were like, so we're at the table, I'm with Emory and the Emory dudes and Classic Crime. We're like, whoa, okay, this is pretty cool,
Yeah.
Like we picked pretty good. Like we're getting a pop-in, a random pop-in.
Yeah.
So Wanda goes up for a few minutes, and she didn't really have any material. That's the other thing about these shows. Like when these super famous comics pop in, like sometimes they're just trying to say some ideas they have, and it's
Yeah.
not necessarily killer stuff.
Yeah.
Because they're working out an act or whatever. So it was pretty cool. We were like, that was pretty cool. All right, we got to see Wanda. She's on Kirby Enthusiasm. So then the host comes back up and he like starts talking about the cameras again, like, you know, do not bring out your cell phones, whatever. And he's like, all right, everybody, welcome to the stage, Kevin Hart.
What?
Dude, like we were like jumping out of our seat, like we couldn't believe it. And the whole play, it's a small room. It's like 180 cap person.
Yeah.
Person room, but at like 180 people, like shoved into a space that's like for 100 people. Like you're shoulder to shoulder, like with everybody at your table, and like there's just enough room between you. We're at a circle, a round booth. We had the best seat in the house. We were like back of the room, which is only 10 feet from the stage, at
Yeah.
like a U-shaped booth.
Oh, yeah.
And super cool. There's only enough room between you and that table in front of you for a waiter to walk by to get your drink orders. And so Kevin Hart comes up, where it's unbelievable, and he's like, all right, I'm working on a tight 30 here. I'm gonna try to do a good tight 30 minutes. And so he goes into it, and he has just a killer, like polished 30 minutes of comedy, like bring down the house, like everybody losing it, like not trying stuff out. It's like he's got it worked out. It's just incredible, like just dying laughing. And I don't even love Kevin Hart's comedy that much. Like
I've seen him in person twice. It's different seeing him in person.
Yes, exactly. And like watching his special on TV at the arena is just like, all right, this doesn't translate for me. But seeing him with 180 people in a room like that, this guy who's at that time, and even now, I guess, maybe the biggest comedian there is, like as far as, the places, tickets he sells and stuff, and movies he's doing, it's just incredible. So he gets done with his 30 minutes, and he's like, all right, thank y'all so much, and he's like, y'all, this next guy, he's like the reason I do comedy and like all this stuff. Please welcome to the stage, Chris Rock.
What? All right, good thing we didn't go to the Mets game.
We're like jumping up and down, like fucking losing our minds. And we just couldn't believe it. Like, and everybody's like, Lunsford, good job, Lunsford. Like, good pick, man. Like, I couldn't believe how well I chose for what we should do on that night off. Anyway, Chris Rock's set was whatever. He was, doing the reading off notes thing.
But you saw Chris Rock.
Yeah, we saw Chris Rock, and it's crazy. And then, like, right after Chris Rock got done, like, some tables emptied out, and it was like Questlove walking through with like security people, and then saw somebody else. I can't remember, somebody else famous. It was wild. So all those SUVs out there were Chris Rock and Kevin Hart and Questlove and a few other famous people. So that's definitely the craziest tour night I've ever had. So just the chances of that. And I started looking up when I got off that tour. I was like, what were some of the other crazy nights at the Comedy Cellar? And I found a couple weeks after we were there was a night where it was Amy Schumer, Aziz Ansari, Jerry Seinfeld, Chris Rock, and Dave Chappelle all popped in on the same night.
Have you ever seen Chappelle live, by the way?
I've not seen him live, no. I would love to. But Seinfeld and Chris Rock, both, they did an interview about it, and both of them were saying, like, they were all talking like, all right, who's going to go in? Amy Schumer went first. I think Aziz went second. They weren't going to headline or whatever.
Yeah.
But so then Seinfeld, Chris, and Chappelle, and Seinfeld and Chris were like, we're not going after Chappelle. Like,
no.
I mean, Seinfeld's like, one of the biggest TV shows of all time. He's a billionaire. He's like, No. And apparently Chappelle that night went up and did like 2 hours or whatever. Just
I got lucky, man. Like that reminds me. So I did a work function, and I flew to DC, and we're sitting in the airport in Louisville, and I'm like, I wonder what's going on in DC. And I had seen uh, Chappelle that year, like a couple in July, and this was in
yeah,
September. So I'm looking up, and you can just Google like what's going on in DC this week or whatever. And I'm going to DC with this like middle-aged, straight, proper white guy. And I see that Dave Chappelle's by far my favorite comedian ever. I love Dave Chappelle.
yeah.
And I look at him and I was like, hey man, I'm just gonna let you know this. I said, I don't care if I have to go by myself. Dave Chappelle is putting a show on in his home city. I'm going to this. You can go. Trust me, I want you to go. He's like, I mean, I've heard of him, but I don't know. I don't know any of his stuff. He's like, I'll go though. And I was
Yeah.
like, all right. I was like, because I don't care. I'll go by myself. That's fine. So we go and we get some food right around the corner from the thing, and I'm like, I'm freaking out because it's like, I mean,
Yeah.
it's still like the fourth or fifth time I've seen him, but I'm seeing Chappelle in DC. Like, I know this is gonna be special. Dude, he went for 2 hours,
Yeah.
and like the people weren't supposed to have phones, and like somebody was recording, and he was like, look man, I'm not going to kick you out, but I really should. He was like, but like delete that. And then there was another part where there was these two like teenagers, and he was like, wait, how old are y'all? And they told him. He's like, look, I don't care how many people here, I'm talking directly to you two right now. And he just has a conversation with them for like 20, and it's like, man, this is so insane to this, like I'm seeing this stuff, man.
That's crazy. I hope he's doing shows in Austin with Rogan a lot right now.
Mm-hmm.
Tempted to at Stubbs Barbecue. Tempted to fly down and try
Well,
to
he
go to
was
one,
supposed to
but
have a co-show down in Nashville because I was trying to get tickets to it, and they sold out within like seconds, and I couldn't get tickets to it.
Man,
yeah. So,
well, hey babe, my wife is at. What's your favorite thing I ever cooked? What do you think the best thing I cook is? Your favorite thing? Oh, that's the roast chicken dish I make. That's like a roast chicken with a ricotta stuffing that you spread on sourdough after it's toasted, and the chicken sits on the bread. It's good with
yes,
the
it sounds good.
Marsala cream sauce.
So I got a couple more questions about like the most recent record, and then we'll go into the rapid fire questions and wrap it up because I'm sure you're kind of busy.
Yeah, I've got a lot going on. It's 10 o'clock. I have a couple other things lined up for the night.
So who reached out to who to get the ball rolling on to start making this last album? Because you all led it by releasing 2020 HD, but like, what led you all to release an entire album?
Shoot. I think I might have said something to TJ like, "Hey, I'd be down to do an album with you," because TJ was moving to Nashville.
Mm-hmm.
So we were all going to be me, TJ, and Cody. And he was like, "You should reach out to Cody if you're serious." And so I did. And me and Cody had a talk. I mean, if you can't tell, like me and Cody just have it's like a
hot and cold, I guess you would say.
Well, our band, it truly is more like a bunch of brothers, and we don't always all get along.
I have 7 brothers, so I can.
Okay. Oh
yeah,
my God.
Yeah.
Jeez. I didn't grow up with any. I have 2 sisters, but so I've always said that Cody feels more like a brother, and we kind of butt heads on a lot of stuff, but we don't butt heads on making music, which is funny. So, yeah, it kind of started like that. And then we just started getting together. Stephen Keach from Haste Today had been playing with us on a bunch of shows we had done, and so we were like, let's loop Stephen in because he's a great writer and just all around talented musician, like great person to just have in the room while you're writing. I talked about like having good ideas and being able to like make them work. Like Stephen just always came strong with like a good idea, you know.
Yeah.
So yeah, we're just like, we got together and had drinks one night, and we're like, okay, let's make, like, if we're gonna do this, let's set out with a goal. Like, our goal is to make a record. Like, that's what we're gonna do. We don't want to get together to jam to make a demo or write 2 or 3 songs. Like, let's figure it out and make an album. So that's how it started, and that was probably when did our record come out?
2019.
2018.
2019.
Came out in 2019. Okay.
Yeah, you all released 2020 HD in 2018, and then the album came out in
Yeah.
2019.
So yeah, all right. Album came out 2019. We recorded that album in August of 2018. We started writing that album summer of 2017. So yeah. So we wrote for about a year.
So I personally love this album as well. Like the last 2 albums were probably my 2 favorite. The reason I love this album so much, first off, because you all were back and making music, and you are one of my favorite bands to listen to. And second, it felt like it was a mixture of your all's 2 styles together on this album, because TJ came back and because you guys had kind of matured in your all's writing of music, where you were like, you were kind of already used to this, but like, we still know this as well. And I thought
Yeah.
that was so cool to see the 2 dynamics come in together. And you saw it in your shows, because you all would play so much, and then TJ would lead the stage for a little bit, and you all would play some of the old stuff. But like, this was like, we're mixing it into one song.
Yeah. I mean, it's funny you bring that up, like the leaving the stage thing or starting without TJ. That was like a weird thing. We're like, how do we navigate that? Or like, we don't want to leave TJ out, but we have to recognize. And we just talked about it. Like, look, there's 2 records that we really like that TJ wasn't on, and we don't want to not play those songs. And
Mhm.
we think we can put together a good show experience that incorporates all that and
Mhm.
has both versions of the band. And TJ's just he's really chill and doesn't take offense to anything. So the idea, like for him, he's talked about this a lot, how after he left the band, he was a big fan of the band going
Yeah.
forward. So to him to get to walk off stage and take a break and not have to work as long as we did, like kind of
Yeah.
he get to walk off, go make a whiskey drink and sit and listen to some songs that he digs, come back out and do 3 more. Kind of a good deal for him, get paid the same as everybody else.
So
So
this
uh
this may be the toughest 2 questions that I ask you the entire time,
all
just
right.
because of the dip. So first, which album is your favorite? And then second, what is your favorite song on each album?
Okay. Album the album I played the best on is Scream Through the Walls, but I don't think there's any question that Come Now Sleep is our best album and would have to be my favorite. To me, it was the pinnacle of artistically anything we were ever going to accomplish. Don't think it would be impossible to ever reach that again. And just everything that went into all the circumstances around it and the time that was spent on it and the dedication and just like finding your groove at that right time. I think that was really special. And I mean, Hell or High Water is super cool and quirky and got a lot of cool stuff on it and some very cool songs. But Come Now Sleep as a record, as like a singular like project or piece of art to put forward,
Yeah.
that's I can't imagine doing anything better probably in my life as far as art goes, which is kind of depressing because I was to think that the best thing I ever did was when I was, 24, and now it's just, all downhill from there. But I got better at drums, but artistically, Cassie just gave me this look like my life is not downhill. My
Just the art,
art,
just as far as
just my
art
art,
goes.
yeah.
So
No, I
what
got better at drums. Like the
yeah.
drums on the last record, I'm like, okay, that's the stuff right there. I've really found it. But because Coming Out Sleep drums, I was just kind of figuring out. I feel like who I was as a drummer,
Mhm.
and I think I did good. But I wish I could do that now. But favorite song on every record. Okay, Sun I Loved You Your Darkest. My favorite song would probably have to be. Shoot. I'll say Admission Regret on Son I Love You Darkest. The end, it's just cool. The guitar riffs and stuff, and the Scoggin cameo. Come Now Sleep, my favorite song is probably, I really like Tides a lot, but that might be the drummer in me saying that, because I like to
Well,
play the
see,
drums on
that's the
that one.
thing, though. This is your favorite. It doesn't have to be the band
Yeah,
favorite. This is your favorite.
I love playing Tides. I really love playing Tides. I hate playing the Horde on that, which sucks because that was a song that was a popular song that a lot of people liked. Love Tides. Hell or High Water, it's Into the Sea is my favorite. I love to play it, and I just love the song. Petty would be.
I love that song.
I love playing it live. Like, it just feels so good to play it live. It's just right, like, in that wheelhouse, just right down the middle of where I want to be. Like, all the beats, and like there's some cool stuff to do in there, but it's like just in the pocket. Petty would be a close second, though. I
I
love
think I
Petty.
have a guess on. I'll just tell you if I know what it is on if you say it on the last one, because I think I know what your favorite one is on the newest one.
I think my favorite song, just thinking about a song on the new one, is definitely Maybe. I think that's the best song.
Well, I was wrong because I remember you whenever I saw you the last time when you all just released the album. Uh, you guys mentioned Venture a lot and how you guys liked how Venture just like built. Yes.
To play live, for sure. That's the hard thing about those questions, is you like different songs for different reasons and different settings. So on the record, I like Maybe the best. For drums, Hollowed Out is pretty dang fun to play.
Yeah.
Broadway is pretty fun to play. Bright White Light is very fun to play on the record. Bright White Light is miserable to play live because it's hard. It's
Yeah.
really hard. Venture is the most fun song ever to play live because it was just built to be a live song and to, like, evolve and put on a good show and be the closer. And we closed with that on that Silverstein Hawthorne Heights tour, which is huge crowds, and it was just like the leave with a bang song. So
Yeah. So
yeah.
what's the future for you guys? Like, do you think you guys will release new music? You say this was probably the finale for you all, or is it? We never really know.
We have literally not had a conversation about that ever. And if I had to guess, I doubt we'll ever do anything again. But I've said that before. So, and then we did. But
Yeah.
we were supposed to play Furnace Fest, and then COVID canceled Furnace Fest. And then we had not been announced yet. Like, they were about to announce. We had accepted our offer.
Mm-hmm.
And because we were doing the Beloved reunion show, and then we were going to do Furnace Fest. And so they had to cancel and postpone, and they asked if we were going to play if we could play the rescheduled one, and we're just all kind of moved on. So we're not doing it.
So what are you into
I think it might
now?
be done.
Yeah.
Right now, well, I'm trying to find a job right now. And then, like, I've been doing some freelance, like, copywriting type stuff. And then I started a food Substack, if anybody knows what that is. It's like a subscription site,
Like
for
Patreon
writing.
type thing, I guess.
Kind of, but it's like geared towards writing specifically. Okay. So I've been wanting to get into writing about food more. I've written done a little bit of food writing type stuff, but I've been wanting to do that more. And I have a pretty good, little following on Instagram, and always getting people hitting me up for stuff about food. So I was like, all right, I'm going to start this. And so there's like you do like a free thing where you just get the free post. And then there's starting like a monthly online cooking class for people that pay like $5 a month or whatever. So
how
that's
how can people find that?
Yeah. AaronLunsford.substack.com. That's it. It's called Whole Meal of Food. It's the name of my Substack, which is a deep cut quote from Old School, Frank the Tank.
Yeah.
He's his wife has kicked him out of the house, and he's driving, calling her, leaving multiple voicemails, and he's like, I don't know, maybe if I was in the neighborhood, I don't know if you'd want to get together and get a bite to eat, or maybe possibly a whole meal of food. And for some reason it cracks me up. So I was like, all right, I'll call my Substack that.
So this is the last part. This is this is the rapid fire questions. You familiar with rapid fire questions? I throw you the question. You say the first thing comes to your head.
Yeah, sounds a little violent, but
A
okay.
little bit, yeah. But so my rapid fire questions are sponsored by Mike and Cheese. Mike and Cheese is a mac and cheese truck that's run by a very good friend of mine. It's got literally the best mac and cheese in town. They do free delivery to the Louisville area and Southern Indiana. Give them a call at 502-548-6845, and make sure you try the Beef's Beef Pizza Mac, which is my original mac and cheese that they make, and it's fire.
What would be the delivery fee for Nashville? Just curious. $500?
Probably, yeah. I mean, the trays start at $10, but it has to be a $15 minimum. So at that point, I'm not really sure what it would be.
Like if I called them up and was like, "Look, I want $1,000 worth of macaroni and cheese,"
he would make that happen.
Make it, all right.
Yeah, he'd make that happen.
Listen, I'm sorry, I'm not gonna do that. But
all right. So the first one, did you have a pre-show ritual? Something that you always did?
Drink.
Did you have a specific pre-show meal, or was it just whatever was around?
Drink.
There you go. All right. Pizza or tacos? Pizza.
Reluctantly, pizza.
All right. Wings or burgers?
Burgers.
All right. So if you are eating wings, do you like drums or flats better?
Flats.
All right. Fries or tots?
Depends on the fries, but I'll default to if I'm assuming the best fries.
Thank you. That means a lot coming from someone that knows a lot about food, because it frustrates me when people say tots. Because
tots are real good, but there's only one. There's only one type of tot that's good.
Crispy tots.
There's crispy frozen tots, but there are some fries. Yeah, if fries are killing it, then yeah.
All right, favorite movie?
Goodfellas.
Oh, solid. All right, favorite musical artist all time and currently?
Jimmy World.
That's currently still too?
Yes.
All right. Well, let's say, instead of just saying currently, who is someone you're going to default to them still?
They're my favorite band.
That's fair.
Yeah.
Favorite album all time and currently?
Favorite album all time and currently? Probably Control, Pedro the Lion.
And is there any new albums that have come out recently that?
Man, I've been listening to that the Delta by Mumford and Sons a whole lot. That's another one of those bands that people make fun of you for liking, but I sure do like that one. I'm bad about newer music. I listen to music while I cook for the most part, and it's all old jazz and stuff like that. And I don't know who any of the artists are.
Let me ask you this.
I just put the playlist on.
So, because you've brought up a couple of them that you feel like people, is there someone currently that is mainstream that you like that maybe people wouldn't think that you like?
Mainstream? I don't know. I mean, Harry Styles has a couple good songs.
Mm-hmm.
He has a couple real good songs. My kids like Post Malone a lot, but I don't really understand it.
Let me ask you this: have you ever watched videos of him not doing music?
Like I saw him on Joe Rogan.
So I'll send you a video in Messenger, and it's literally just him. If you don't like him after that, I'll be very surprised. I think, especially after that, I think you'll appreciate it because he appreciates so much classic rock and so much stuff goes into what he does, and like the type of person he is. That's what makes me like him.
I'm not a hater. I just don't. I don't get it necessarily. So
he is uglier than sin too, though. He looks like he smells bad. I'll say that. Yeah,
a lot of band people smell bad.
All right. So, what's your biggest fear?
Dying young or dying early.
Yeah. Favorite flavor of ice cream?
The darkest chocolate from Jenny's ice cream.
Is that a place in Nashville?
It's actually from Ohio. I bet y'all have one in Louisville. I'd be shocked if you didn't have one in Louisville.
You
Jenny's
say
ice cream.
Jenny's? I don't think I've
Yeah,
ever. I have to Google it.
They're based out of Ohio. We have a few locations here though.
All right, favorite restaurant in Nashville?
Arnold's Country Kitchen.
I have to find.
It's a meat and three.
And what about
cafeteria style?
What about in the country? Like, what's your favorite restaurant you've ever eaten at in the United States?
In the U.S., my favorite restaurant I've ever eaten at. Oh man, might still be Arnold's.
Man, that's
might be my favorite restaurant in the world. But Joe Beef in Montreal might be the best meal I've ever had. So, it's like a cool. You look it up. Bourdain has a couple episodes on it, I think.
Favorite athlete ever?
Chipper Jones, favorite athlete. Yeah, for sure.
All right. And this is the last one. What's the best venue you've ever played at?
Three just came to mind simultaneously. My favorite venue would probably be Vino's Brew Pub in Little Rock, Arkansas. Just because context and it's the dive. Sounds like crap, but the pizza's good and the shows were killer.
Yeah.
And I was from there. Vino's is where I grew up going to see shows in Little Rock.
Yeah.
And so to come back around and sell 400 tickets there is mind blowing for me.
Yeah.
As 16-year-old Aaron's like, what? Okay.
So what were the other two that came to your mind?
The Troubadour in West Hollywood is incredible. And then I love the End in Nashville.
Mm-hmm.
It's 200 cap room, just total dive, but I love it.
One that I'm surprised I didn't hear you say was Rocketown, because I always heard great things about Rocketown, but I don't know how Rocketown would be as far as coming from a person playing music.
I can't tell if you're joking.
People that went to shows have said that it was good, but like, I don't know from a band perspective. I'm guessing you despise that place.
I don't like big rooms that much. There are some big rooms that are pretty cool, like New Orleans House of Blues is like a 900 cap room, and it's very cool. That would be in my top 5, venues to play. Like just from like how you load in and where you're at in New Orleans, like it just is a whole vibe that is very.
Have you ever been to the House of Blues in Chicago? Is it similar to that?
No,
that's probably one of the coolest venues I've ever been to. I saw the Used play their first 2 albums there.
It's just huge. It's very big, and we played a big show there on that Silverstein Hawthorne Heights tour. But New Orleans House of Blues is just very distinct, and it has House of Blues is very corporate, and it's Live Nation owns it, and not a lot of personality to it really. But the New Orleans one has maintained something, and that is actually very cool and special. So, I mean, there's a lot of good rooms all over the place. Chain Reaction in Anaheim, California, some very cool shows happen there. But it's it's like Rocketown. It's an all ages venue. There's no alcohol. It's just not. It's not a good show experience if you are of that age where you want to. When I go to a show now, like I want to get a babysitter, go out, get some drinks, enjoy a show.
Yeah.
Like I'm not going to Rocketown. But it's great for building. It's a great place for kids to be able to go watch live music. Like, I don't discount that value, but as far as a band goes, like, no, it's not my favorite.
So the last thing I want to say, I mean, my brother and sister-in-law, Matt and Jennifer, and today, well, first off, it's cool because you know them somewhat, and I kind of want to dedicate this episode to them because they had a dog that they've had for a long time, and they had to put it down today.
Well, damn.
I know that they're going to listen to this, and I'm glad that on a day that something like that can happen, I could do an interview with somebody that they enjoy hearing from. So hopefully they make it to this part at some point, and they can see that I'm dedicating this episode to them because it sucks. It sucks to see that for anyone, but I'm thankful that you could do this for me, and that it happened on this day, I guess, so that it could kind of help them maybe cope with something like that because it's tough.
Yeah, sure thing. I don't like dogs, so it's hard for me to relate. But I, I share the compassion in their grief. Hopefully, actually, I think Matt will appreciate that I said that.
Because he would rather you be honest with things. Yeah,
exactly. I don't want anybody's dog to die. Sorry. Look, I'm a couple mason jars full of wine into this interview now. So
yeah. I appreciate you taking time out. I mean, you took a while out, 2 hours. I mean,
I like podcasting. I love to sit and talk. It's fun.
Yeah.
So I wish I had a podcast that I could do this. It'd be fun. I don't know what to do a podcast about though. So,
man, people, I guarantee you, like how that guy interviewed you. I bet people would love to hear from bands like that. I don't know how much you would really want to talk about that, but you could talk about things that a lot of people don't know.
That's the problem. I don't want to talk about music at all if I had my own podcast.
Well, there you go.
Yeah.
You got to get connections in the food market then, because you took over the conversation there for about 10 minutes, and I was just like, just listening. Like, I don't know any of this stuff, so it's just cool to hear this.
Right on. Yeah, good time, dude. Thank you.
For sure, man. I
Sorry,
appreciate it.
Took like 5 years or something, but
no, it was both of us, man. Because I didn't reach back out either, so I'm glad we got it done though, and I appreciate it, man. I'll tag you on whatever social media. I'll send it to you so you can share it for me if you don't mind.
Yeah, sure.
But I appreciate it. But I'm serious about that Louisville stuff though. When COVID, lets up and we can kind of start going to things again, I'll have to get you up here and we'll go to a game.
I'll go to a game. I love sports.
Yeah,
I do love competition. I'm just don't follow anything but baseball. So
I'll tell you what, we'll trade because you'll come up here. I'll take you to a Louisville basketball game. I'll come down. You take me to a Predators game.
Ooh, Preds games are fun.
Hockey. We had a minor league hockey team
fun.
when I was a kid, and I just remember not knowing what was going on but having fun at the same time.
Nashville hockey games are very fun. Way different than every other, hockey team. Yeah. It's a party. It's a real party.
Maybe we can run into one of my favorite comedians down there too, Theo Von. I love Theo Von.
I hadn't seen him around town yesterday, but Colin and TJ went to high school with him, so they know him. So
if you could hook that.
Well, we were trying to get TJ to tell Theo to come hang out for we were doing a gumbo hang or something. There's a few people from Louisiana that live here. Because Theo's he's from Mandeville, Louisiana, which is where Colin, Cody, and TJ are all from. So, but yeah, TJ was kind of wussing out on texting him like.
So he has his number.
I shouldn't be saying this, I guess, but yeah.
Well,
yeah.
No, I mean that's TJ, not it. You didn't put his number out there.
Listen, TJ's sense of humor is very similar to Theo's. It's really funny.
Yeah.
Me and our old tour manager Brian, who we're all still friends with, we listen to Theo. We're like, this is like listening to TJ, kind of like the way they, the way they mess around and stuff.
Yeah,
it's funny. So,
I was introduced to Theo Von probably like 2 or 3 years ago.
Okay.
And I immediately became obsessed with him because he's so funny. But then there's times though on his This Past Weekend podcast where he is like hauntingly real though. Like when he spoke to that guy that called in that is a struggling alcoholic, and Theo went into that. Like that stuff is like, man, this like he can be serious, and when he's serious, like he'll tell you stuff that like you won't hear from other people.
Yeah, I remember I watched Theo when he was on Road Rules. Like I watched his season like as it was happening when I was whatever age that was. So it was fun when I saw he was doing comedy years later. I was like, oh, Theo from Road Rules? But because on Road Rules, I was like, this guy's cool. Yeah, like he was never dumb or drama like the dumb stuff that go on those reality shows. I was like, no, this guy's pretty cool. So
yeah. I'd love to meet. Theo. I'd love to meet Theo Von, man. That guy's hilarious.
Oh, he's good. What you said you were a fan of another NL East team?
The Washington Nationals.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I'm a Nationals fan.
That's unfortunate.
It is. Yeah, it is. But I told you I am working on that other podcast, so I don't want to say it out loud on here because I don't like giving away the guest. But when I do that, if I get that one done, I'll make sure and send that one to you.
Well, I'll say this: from what I can tell about baseball players, they are decidingly less concerned with those types of loyalties than fans are.
Yes.
Because I guarantee you that dude, if the Nationals will pay him to go play baseball this year, he'll be there.
I wouldn't mind him playing for us either. I definitely wouldn't mind him playing for us.
He can
We did just get Schwarber 2 days ago.
Yep.
1 year, $10 million, or 1 year, $10 million. But
the Mets are making moves, but they'll figure out a way to mess that up somehow. So,
well, you brought up Cincinnati. Cincinnati will find some way to trade whoever their best player is, because that's seemingly what they do all the time. That's why I could never be a Cincinnati Reds fan, even if I live in this area and their farm team is 10 minutes away from where I live. I can't do it. They're just it's like they're obsessed with being just depressed all the time. It's like, hey, we have a good player, let's trade him.
Well, I mean, they've kept Votto for a long time, but now he's older. He's not the player he once was, which is fine. That's what happens. But they kind of missed their window. They had that Joey Votto window.
Yeah.
And could never quite pull it together for Joey. And you hate to see that. And I'm worried about that with the Braves. And we almost made it to the World Series. But I look at Freddie Freeman, I'm like, hey, this is our time with Freddie Freeman.
Yeah.
He's in his prime. He's MVP caliber player. We have multiple MVP caliber players on our team.
Yeah.
Let's roll. Let's do this. So when I see the Mets making moves for Lindor and Carlos Carrasco, and now they're talking about, there was rumors about Chris Bryant. I don't know if that's going down, but the Mets, I fully trust them to screw it up, no matter how, no matter how many good players they have. So,
but man, I won't keep you on anymore. I appreciate you so much. I'll try to it probably won't be released until tomorrow morning, just because it's got to convert and everything. But man, I appreciate it so much, man.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
For sure, man. I'll talk to you soon.
All right, bye.